Broadcasting from the confines of an abandoned radio station in the secluded ghost town of High Strangeness, just outside of Area 51. It's time for full disclosure of the topics they told us were off limits. Hi, everybody. How are you? I'm Connie Willis, and this is Coast to Coast AM from the 840 WHAS studios of iHeartMedia in Louisville, Kentucky. Home of the Louisville Slugger, the world's largest zombie attack, also home of 11 herbs and spices, good old Kentucky Fried Chicken. Hi, everybody. Again, Connie Willis here on Coast to Coast. Tonight, Survivorman Les Stroud joins us all night long. Survivorman gone Bigfootin'. I love it. I'm looking forward to this. I've got a ton of emails on it, a ton of texts. They're still coming in, and this is going to be exciting. I'm really looking forward to this as well. And yes, we will take phone calls from you at one point. He's a musician, too. I think most of you already know that. So we're going to be playing some of his music as well. So hang in there. Tonight it's Survivorman Gone Bigfoot here on Coast to Coast AM. You're listening to Coast AM. Hi, everybody. I'm Connie Willis. We are going to get started tonight with Survivorman Les Stroud. Before that, though, I want to give you an update on Tom Danheiser, the producer for George. A lot of people asking about him, sending prayers. He had a pretty close call recently, but he wants everybody to know he's home resting, and he just can't thank everyone enough for their kind notes and prayers. He's also truly overwhelmed by everyone's concern, and he can't wait to get back to the Coast family this coming next week. So it's good to hear that, and that he's okay. And he's a great guy, loved by many, and I'm just glad to get that update. So, Tommy, we know you're listening out there, and we're all thinking of you and sending more of our well wishes and vibes. You know, it's good when you're in the world of the paranormal, I guess, because so many cool people send out great vibes and great energy, and we have that in our group, and we all believe in that in our group, so that's great. So you need it at a time like this for sure, right? So, Tommy, we'll dedicate tonight for you and some healing for sure. And I'm sure this guy knows about healing. I bet he's talked to some tribal people that could do that, and I bet he's open to it as well. Les Stroud is a man known for a whole lot of different things. If you don't know who he is, if you've been under a rock or something, because you probably knew him best as Survivorman. But then at one point, he started doing some shows on Bigfoot. So we're going to talk to him about that tonight, what he thought, how he came to that. But what an incredible background he has, best known as the Canadian Screen Award-winning producer, creator, and star, of course, of Survivorman. And I know he's not going to talk about all the neat awards that he has won, but I know he has because he seems like a pretty modest guy. And that's probably why we all like him so much. He's really cool. He's down to earth and somebody we'd all like to sit around the campfire and talk to. So we're going to go ahead and just start doing that. So let's do that with filmmaker, outdoor adventurer, singer, songwriter, too. What else do you do by a campfire? Performer, author, keynote speaker, and Survivorman. I hear you laughing back there. How are you, Les? Welcome to the show.
I'm very good. Thank you very much for this.
I am so happy to talk to you. You truly are the adventure man, and it's tough to get a hold of you. You are busy. You are really, if you're not out doing a show, you're talking about one or producing music or playing music. And why don't you go ahead and tell everybody a little bit more about yourself?
Well, I mean, I guess I get bored easily, but that's the problem.
True.
I'm definitely a restless spirit, and I certainly enjoy. I love variety. You know, I love variety. You know, as the cliche goes, is the spice of life. And even when I was young, I remember saying that I would like to have a major career, but have one every 10 years, sort of thing. And I think I'm well on my way to sort of achieving that at this point. But then, by the same token, you do tend to kind of fall into things. And if you're on your own personal correct road, you're really on your right road, and you're following your instincts, and you're doing what's going to make your heart happy in life, then you do fall. The opportunities just come before you, and you've got to recognize them and go for them. And I've been doing that for I guess quite a long time now. It's sort of my late 20s, when I really figured out how to do that.
What were you like as a little kid? Were you like a little outdoorsman? Were you out running around in the woods, or was your little instinct somewhere else?
Oh yeah, I was raised by wolves, and
I was told that. Now I know it's true.
yeah. So I mean, there's the irony of life, isn't it? I mean, in fact, I was my background could not be, in my opinion, I think more boring. I mean, I was west end of a city, Toronto up in Canada, suburb, white bread, listening to Styx and Supertramp and watching television. I mean, it was really a very benign existence when I was younger. So no, I did not have that kind of parental guidance or that kind of influence of outdoorsy parents with a pair of canoes on the roof of their SUV or something like that. Not at all. In fact, my place as a kid was mostly with my face stuck in the boob tube. It was mostly watching television. But the thing is that the TV that I watched that caused me to yearn so much for adventure was Jacques Cousteau and Tarzan movies and Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom. So those, it really, I very much wanted to be a combination of Jacques Cousteau and Tarzan when I grew up. And it occurred to me all of a sudden one day, not that long ago, is that, well, what is Survivorman? But exactly that. It's Survivorman became a hybrid of being a filmmaker, an adventure filmmaker, Jacques Cousteau, but being out in the jungle surviving, Tarzan, and so I set my path, I think, very early on, for sure, but I didn't do it it wasn't with your question, it wasn't in that obvious way. As I say, I wasn't raised by wolves, and my parents had nothing to do with anything other than maybe, going up to the cottage and playing horseshoes and drinking beer sort of thing.
Okay, I know the horseshoes thing. Let me. Who was your favorite Tarzan? I got to ask.
Well, see, isn't that funny? Because I mean, Johnny Weissmuller is actually listed as the worst actor of all time. But it's got to be Weissmuller for me. I mean, he did so many of them, and when you're 8, or 7, I mean, you're not recognizing his acting ability. That's for sure.
That's true.
Going with the movies. But I also remember there was one particular Tarzan movie, and I do not know who the actor was, but he was tall and steel cut and good looking, and it is a little different. He was a very intelligent man. He starts off, he's in like New York or someplace like that, and he's some sort of high-end guy. I don't know what he was. Maybe he was a lawyer, I don't know, but he was well dressed, super sharp, ladies' man. But then, there's trouble in the jungle, and he goes, I gotta go fix the trouble in the jungle, and he grabs a loincloth and a big knife, and the other person goes, well, aren't you gonna pack? He goes, this is all I'll need, and he takes off, and the next time you see him, he's half naked with the knife. But I do remember thinking, that is the coolest thing I ever saw in my life.
I love that.
Yeah, but that's what I want to be. I want to be able to, and now, I mean, I do jump between, from various worlds of what I do in entertainment or in music or even as a filmmaker, from, being dressed up to the nines, and then the next week I'm, wearing next to nothing in a jungle. So I do.
Now, do you have a loincloth as well?
I've had one.
Not that. Oh, okay. Well, yeah, you know what? A lot of people would ask me who's your favorite superhero, and it would always be Tarzan. I don't know if he's considered in that group, but I also enjoyed him growing up, and there was one specific one, and that might have been more of the ladies' guy because he always had this great, fantastic tan. And I don't remember much of his acting either. It was just Ron Ely. He just had that cool look about him, and he took care of his little boy Jai, and I don't know. Those were just the best.
That might be the one I'm even referring to. But
yeah?
You're right. I mean, think of what he represents. He represents our ability to exist as we did when we first began. And I think a lot of times the fascination with Survivorman, why did it become galvanizing? Why did it set off an entire genre of survival TV? What was the appeal of Survivorman, and what is the appeal of Survivorman? I should say what is, because I have brand new shows coming on yet.
Yay!
And hopefully your listeners will be happy to hear that. But brand new shows coming out very soon. And to me, I think it's because it really touches with our original existence. It touches with our thoughts of, hey, if I really had nothing and really had to survive like Tarzan did, or like Les Stroud Survivorman is doing on this TV show, could I do it? And so there's that fascination part. And then the other part of fascination is the morbid fascination, I think, for some of the, I mean, there's a lot of guys who watch the show, and I think their wives, peek their heads over the shoulders and going, "What is he going to eat that?" And
yes,
they come at it from a different angle,
Yes. You know what? I mean, when you were very first coming out with your show and stuff as just Survivorman, I was. I thought, oh, this is pretty cool, and I would watch, and then you'd eat something really whatever, and I'm like, oh, or you do something that it's like, oh, I hope I'm never in that position, and I thought, you know what, I don't have to watch, So I remember seeing that along the way, and then I heard about, oh, that Survivorman guy, he had some sort. I was out Bigfooting one time, and somebody said he heard something or he noticed something. He's got some shows coming up with Bigfoot, and I was like, what? That one guy that would eat weird things, or and then. Holy cow, got to watch those, and they were just absolutely fantastic, Les. You have brought a credibility to the people out there that people that have never thought about Bigfoot or never wanted to go there, you've brought them in to where they're thinking about it or went over to the other side of the fence going, oh, it must be real. And we, in the world of credibility, want to say thank you for that. But you've really done that. I mean, you probably didn't know you were going to do that, but I think you have.
Well, thank you very kindly. I mean, no, I didn't. I remember speaking with different people before I began that. One particular gentleman is a good, excellent filmmaker, Doug Heichik. He's done some work on Bigfoot films before, and he called me up and he said, "You don't realize what you're about to do you?" And I was just talking with him about this and that and the other, and he said, "No, I want you to listen to me, Les." He goes, "You have to understand that, us here," and he was talking about the Bigfoot community, let's say, and he says, us here in the Bigfoot community, I mean, we don't have yet what we really are looking for in the media acceptance, and notwithstanding the brilliance of Coast to Coast, by the way, but he says, on television and so on, I mean, we don't. He says, we're all watching you. We all know you're about to do this series, and we're all watching you because you've got this reputation of authenticity and integrity and truth and honesty. And boy, don't I sound stupid saying that myself? But in any event, great. I'm glad I have that reputation. It's a wonderful one to even attempt to live up to. But it did put me in this strangest place in the Bigfoot community, and I mean, people still continue to come out of the woodwork to say, if you're going to do this, I'm going to tell you my story, and that has been really wonderful for me to have that acceptance almost immediately from people I've never met before.
And it's a whole other world too, isn't it? I mean, the community is there's definitely a community. It's extremely passionate. It is, total believers for the most part. I mean, you've got your skeptics and your other people that are, in there and they haven't seen anything, but they don't think that they're not, or they think that, or they want to see something and they haven't. But the community itself is, some people believe it's just, blood and guts, and other people believe, no, these are from outer space. And you've got such diversity inside the community itself. I know you've already figured that out and had to deal with that.
Well, I think what I've done, Connie, is I've given voice to all. And
yes, you have. Yes, you have,
yeah,
Les.
Good. Well, because therein lies the difference between the work that I set out to do and the work that primarily exists. If a little history lesson here on and I don't know all of the series and all of the TV shows, and there's been a lot now, but originally up until the one show, well, up until Finding Bigfoot, the shows tended to be a handful of documentaries, maybe some short series connected to some other series about myths and legends or monsters or whatever, and it was very, very dry and very scientific, and frankly, I enjoyed them. I mean, they were very documentary style, dry style. And then along comes Finding Bigfoot. Now, the reason why I even would mention them is in conjunction with what you just said, is that most of these other shows, and then including Finding Bigfoot, have in their background their own agenda of what they think the phenomenon is all about. And so those shows, for the most part, push those agendas. I didn't. and I wasn't going to do that. And I basically said, none of you people are going to make me your poster boy. So in many ways, you might all like me, but most of you might all just hate me, because I'm not going to stand up on a podium and go, yes, these people over here, they're correct. Those people over there, they're wrong. These people over here, they're only half right. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to say because remember too, I don't make reality television. I don't even like it. I make documentary films. I'm a documentary filmmaker. Jacques Cousteau. I make documentary work. That's what Survivorman has always been. It's never been a reality TV show. And I hate it when it gets called a reality TV show. And Survivorman Bigfoot had to be the same thing. It had to be, my mind is wide open. All these crazy things have happened, and I've had these experiences. So I'm going to embed myself with the community, anybody in the community who's willing to welcome me. And when I get there, here's the catch, Connie. When I get to Texas or Vancouver or California or Washington, wherever, when I get there, if that person thinks Bigfoot's an alien, then okay, for that show, Bigfoot's an alien. If this person thinks Bigfoot's an ape, then okay, it's an ape. If this person thinks Bigfoot's a human, okay, it's a human. If they think it's a fifth-dimensional interportal, okay, then it's that. And so I open myself up, because that's the way I am in life.
And you're learning from them. You're learning from them. Tell me what you know.
Yeah. Right, how am I going to learn from them about this phenomenon and help the rest of the world to see the phenomenon through the format of documentary film work if I'm not open?
Yeah, absolutely. That's how you got to learn. I went out a couple times, and the couple times that I went out with some of the best people in the world. And I tell you, I mean, they taught me so much, and they talked to me a long time before they ever let me go to their areas, because they wanted to make sure who I was, what it was about for me. Am I trying to make them look like fools? Am I going to bring a gun and try to shoot one? They were really cool with me. And then when they felt good, they brought me in, and I had more experiences in 2 different weekends than people have in 20, 30 years. And I'm not out to convince everybody that, this is true, this is true. I experienced it myself, and I know what I experienced. And, but being out there, I asked a lot of people a lot of questions, and people told me about UFO sides to it, alien sides to it, all sorts of things. And I would have never gotten any of that information if I wasn't open and listening to what everybody said. And I wasn't there to make fun of them. I want to learn. I want to know what it is, just like you do. So if you're just joining us, we're talking to Les Stroud, Survivorman, and how do you refer to yourself now? Survivorman, Bigfooter, Bigfootin', Bigfoot guy. What are you, Tarzan?
No, I'm just plain old Les, actually.
Yes.
But Survivorman, it's still pretty much Survivor. I have to admit, there was a short period of time where I was almost like, oh, please don't call me Survivorman. But now I'm.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's like so many. Here's a weird parallel, but you look at different musicians over the years. They're known for their big hit, and then they never play their hit in concert, and you go crazy. It's because they can't stand. It's like, oh God, I don't want to play. Billy Joel didn't play Piano Man for years, and then one day
yes,
he came to peace with it, and that's where I'm at with Survivorman. I came to peace with Survivorman, and now I'm like, yep, that's right, I'm Survivorman.
That's funny, because I was going to say, that's the first person I thought of was Billy Joel. He never wanted to say Piano Man. In fact, on all the interviews, he would go, yeah, there'd always be somebody out in the crowd that would go, Piano Man! And he would make fun of him, just be like, get away, I don't even want to talk to you. I totally get it and totally understand that.
Yeah, no, I don't think Van Morrison plays Brown-Eyed Girl ever as well. And so, because with Survivorman, it became a phenomenon. I mean, it started this whole genre of survival television, and then the notoriety really, it's on in over 120 countries around the world, and so I would get, called out of the blue all the time. And so, but the thing is, when people recognize me, and I know we're tangenting here, but when people recognize me in the public, they're not coming at me like I'm a politician and they hate the policies I put in place. They're coming at me to tell me they like my work. Now, who would I be if I were to spurn them off to say, no, I don't have time for you? So I always have time for people when they stop me in an airplane like they did, today, or if they stop me on the street. And so, as I said, I've made my peace with Survivorman, but I've always been very welcoming of it out in the public.
I'm glad you have. And how many seasons have you been on?
Well, again, I don't do my show like any other show is shot. I don't pack out my 13 episodes or my 26 episodes, which is a normal TV format, and then call it a day. I basically talk to the networks and say, okay, I think I'm feeling strong enough now to get out and do a bunch more shows. But so the best way to answer you is to say that I started, my first pilot for Survivorman was shot and put on air at 2001.
Okay, all right. Well, I know that I'm hearing the music going on, and speaking of music, so we're going to take a break here real fast. You're listening to Coast to Coast AM, and I've got Les Stroud with me, Survivorman, gone Bigfoot, I like to say now, and that's why we've got him here tonight. And he is also a musician, so we're going to be playing some of his music tonight, too. So hang with us. We got more with Les Stroud coming up here on Coast to Coast AM. It's Coast to Coast AM, and thank you. It is Connie Willis here. And again, Les Stroud coming up. More of him tonight. Survivorman on Coast to Coast AM. Welcome back. I'm Connie Willis talking with Les Stroud tonight on Coast to Coast AM, discussing his background, his encounters of Bigfoot and the Bigfoot people, everything around him, how he got into this, and, of course, his music, too. That was a great tune, Les, that we just heard called We Crawl. Is that right?
Yeah, that goes back. That's a couple of albums ago. I did it with there's a Canadian band. They're no longer together, called the Northern Pikes, and they ended up being my backup band, and we put together that CD with that song on there.
That's pretty cool. So what? So you were like, okay, I'm going to be out in the woods, and while I'm out in the woods, I learned that I could sing. Or how did all that? How did all this come? I mean, you do a collage of everything. I love it.
Well, I mean, if you go back to what I was saying about Jacques Cousteau and Tarzan, that was all great until right. until I turned 14. And when I was around 14, I discovered rock and roll in a very big way, and that really stole the limelight of my heart for a while. And I really didn't look back. All I wanted to do was either be Neil Young or something like that. And so I focused on music, starting at the age of 14. Wrote my first song when I was 14, and I've written thousands since. So it's been a focus of my life. I went like that for about a good 10 solid years. I can't believe, I don't know if it's the same for all of your listeners, but the song that you just put on, not my song We Crawl, but before that, which actually I was cracking up because it's the song from the Secret Life of Walter Mitty, Don't You Want Me? And you put that song on, and it represents everything I hated about the music industry in the mid-'80s. I was trying so hard in the mid-'80s, and I call it the dark age of music, when we had the Thompson Twins and Spandau Ballet and Depeche Mode and the hair band.
Oh, and see, I love that. Maybe it's a girl thing. I don't know, but I loved all that stuff.
And maybe it's an age thing, too. I mean, I grew up with Led Zeppelin and Elton John and, the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and Neil Young and all that. So, but nonetheless, as I was saying, I basically pulled out of music when I was around 25 and dove into outdoor adventure. So you can see what I'm saying. It's been like that 10-year career thing. First, I wanted to be, Tarzan, then I wanted to be Neil Young, and then disillusioned with the music industry, I became a filmmaker after that.
Yeah,
Anyway, so just to say, however, music has come back in my life in a huge way for the longest time, and I got to say, God, I'm really blessed that being Survivorman, has opened the door for me to go and start playing in charities with Alice Cooper and Johnny Lang recently, or jumping on stage with Journey and blowing some harmonica. So Survivorman, strangely, has opened the back door to for a lot of the musical work I do.
Yeah, I saw that you were doing something with Journey. How was that? That's pretty cool.
Oh, it was mind-blowing. I mean, it's funny because when I saw them, I said, I saw you guys in concert in Buffalo, opening for the Stones, and when the main players goes, "Oh, is that the time we got booed off the stage?" I said, "Yeah, I think it was." And it was, I said, "But you guys are kind of a chick band back then." But then all of a sudden, you came out with Escape, and you were just this amazing produced rock band. And so I actually was a big fan of Journey, but as so many other bands. So when they asked me to get up there, and Neil Schon and I connected playing some blues, and he let me cut loose with my harmonica. Wow! If it's okay to say this, if people can go to my YouTube page, they can see that video of me playing with Journey, and Neil Schon gets down on his knees to play a solo. And he's a tremendous guitar player, and afterwards he goes, "Les, I haven't done that in 25 years."
It is amazing that you can do so many different things because of that, and you know what? You're good too. I mean, that helps. I don't think they put you up there. You weren't very good at it.
Well, you know, and since we're touching on the music, I'll say that, you know, here's the thing. When I write, and I'm working on an album right now called, if it's okay to go here now, Connie, I'm working on an album right now called Mother Earth. It's Survivorman's Mother Earth. And all of the music that I work on now, other than going off and playing the blues, harmonica, is music that celebrates nature, that is about reconnecting people to the earth. And, you know, Slash has come on board and played a solo in one of the songs. Mike Klink, who is responsible for the sound of Guns N' Roses, and everyone from Metallica to Paul Anka is producing. And these people are only getting involved because I've said, here's why I'm doing this. I don't need to be a rock star. I'm quite comfortable with an excellent career in documentary filmmaking. But I do this music, and I want to reconnect people to the earth. It's time to do that. And of course, just like everything I do, Survivorman Bigfoot, and now Survivorman's Mother Earth, my music, no holds barred. I don't hold anything back. I just speak whatever truth that I happen to be aware of at the time. So my music doesn't pull punches when I'm approaching an environmental issue, let's say. So and that is the music that I'm doing now. I'm launching a tour to do just that, to spread the message of reconnecting to the earth.
I like that. It's good to stay grounded, you know. I mean, I was living in Philly for a while, and, man, at one point you're like, I need grass, I need dirt, I need to feel earth again, you know, with all the cement around.
In fact, I've often said to people, you know, when you're in the city, I mean, I lived in the city for years, too, and you can find it, you've got to be open to it. I used to walk my dog underneath the freeway. Like, my God, really? But you know what? Under that freeway was the creek and an old field area and some original Northern Carolinian forest. And I would, you know, in the middle of a city, underneath a noisy freeway, I found my nature. And that's why I would say to people, you don't have to go to Peru like I do, or Madagascar, or be Survivorman. You can find that reconnection and that touching of nature at your local park.
You absolutely can. But you know what? I'd love to go to Peru and all those other places, without a doubt. So going back to Bigfoot now, how did that even occur that all of a sudden you were going to do these things? I'm guessing along the way you've had to have some experiences, and I think you had 2, right? Is that right, or more?
Well, I've had more. Can I go further back, or just
bring it on? We've got the night.
Well, I can tell you that hindsight being 20/20, I had a scenario, a situation when I was younger, when I was first practicing and learning survival, and I went out to an area in Ontario called Moon River, Ontario, and I went off with a friend, and we're building our shelters, and we get them done, and he's a couple of 100 yards away around a knoll sort of over there somewhere. I can't really see him, but he's my survival buddy, so we're out doing our shelters, and I've got my shelter built, and I light my fire, and I, that night, heard the most incredible, god-awful screams. It sounded like 6 women being tortured and abused on the edge of this lake off in the distance a bit, and I've never heard anything so scary in my life. And I stumbled in the dark, because I didn't have a flashlight because it was survival, and I stumbled in the dark to my buddy's shelter, and I said, Doug, did you hear that? Well, he was snoring, so he didn't hear a thing. So I woke him up, and I said, and he hadn't heard a thing. I said, well, and the one and only time in my life, I said, well, I'm not staying. There's no way I'm staying here. So we left. Now, I didn't remember that whole scenario for many years until in this whole Survivorman Bigfoot walk, I started to, be reading and researching and hearing so many stories of exactly the same nature, and it made me pause and think, what actually was going on back then? And this was back in the 80s, back in the mid 80s. Well, when I turned to survival, when I started training in adventure and survival, and so that's how it all. That was one, but that didn't start anything. I just sort of stuck it away, and I thought, oh, maybe it was porcupines fighting or something like that. You come up with the answers. During Survivorman, most people might be familiar with my Alaska adventure. But just before that, before Survivorman took off, with my wife at the time, we went and we spent a year living in the forest in northern Ontario. And during that year, on our research mission, when we were first starting, we were staying in a tent way off on a point where we'll call it the classic middle of nowhere. And we were in the tent, it was dusk, and listened to the sound of a very heavy, 2-footed creature, bipedal, walking towards our tent. And I waited and waited, and I remember thinking, okay, what the heck is this that's coming? Well, when a bear comes close by in a situation like that, I just call out to it. So I did that. It probably came within about 50 feet, and finally I went, hey, we're over here, and I just say that, and it stopped. And it slowly turned, you could hear it shuffle, and it just walked away, very heavy, 2-footed. To this day, of course, I regret not unzipping the tent, but again, it's one of those situations where, you're in your sleeping bag, you barely lift your head up, it's all happening, it's all gone before you have to, and that's going to lead into what happened to me with Survivorman on many occasions shooting the series, where it's all gone before you have that chance to do stuff. It's really easy for people to be sitting on a couch and think, why didn't you just blank? And it's like, you know what, you weren't there. You had to be there to know why I didn't just blank, because it wasn't possible. But I digress. I mean, in that case, I remember, and Sue and I talked about it, and we thought, that was no moose, that was no bear. It's like, the only thing we could think of at the time was, oh man, can you imagine if that was like a Bigfoot?
You did question that at that point?
Well, we questioned it. We had thought. I mean, by then, this is, I guess, when it was this be late '80s. So by then, various Bigfoot documentaries had started to appear on television here and there, or books or what have you. So it made you think, And here we are in this area, and in a place where locals will say, "Oh yeah, we've seen them," Anyway, so fast forward to Survivorman. In Survivorman, Alaska, and people can Google this. It's on YouTube. They can find both the show itself and also later on in a best of Survivorman where I talk about that scenario. But I had this big noise happening in the bush beside me, and I froze instantly. And I had just been filming. I was filming myself making a grass bed, but I put the cameras away. And then as people sometimes don't realize, once I finish filming what it is I got to do, I have to continue doing it off camera because, I still got to gather grass, and I'm still there to survive. So I did my filming part, and I put the cameras away. And then I just, I heard this rustling, and I kept looking up, and I heard this rustling, and I kept looking up. Oh, I should qualify that. Actually, I heard the rustling while I was filming, and you can see me on camera. You can see me looking off into the distance, disturbed by something. But I ignored it, right? Again, your mind gives you the answer without knowing. You're just like, oh, must be a bear over there. Oh, there must be, whatever. And it must be an owl howling or whatever. Your mind gives you the answer quite often until what's going on becomes far more intense than what your mind's willing to give you the answer for. So you see me looking away. I put the cameras away, and I'm still gathering grass, and then all of a sudden this thing started bellowing from 100 feet away in a tree like a great ape. And I know what it sounds like when a bear barks or a moose grunts. This is nothing like that at all. And I'm in Alaska, and it did it. And I would imitate it for you, except I'm talking to you from a hotel room, so I better not.
No, go ahead. Let the neighbors hear you. It's okay.
It sounded like a great ape bellowing, and it did it five times, really loud, louder than any human could muster. And then I froze the whole time, and then I thought, I've got to turn on the camera. There's the camera. It's 30 feet away. It's still on the tripod. I've got to turn on and at least get this sound. Finally, I make a move for it, and the second I move for that camera, that thing went through the forest like a freight train, trees busting down, and just kept going. Here's the thing. Why didn't I go absolutely insane and go with my camera filming, looking for tracks and so on? Well, you know why? Because I was in the middle of filming Survivorman, and I remember distinctly saying to myself, oh my God, I think that was a Bigfoot. If I say that on camera, or I go try to pay attention to that, I'm in the middle of doing Survivorman shows. No one's going to care about Survivorman anymore. So I consciously decided to let it go. So I thought, well, whatever it was, and I didn't get finished doing my Alaska show because halfway through a Bigfoot came out, and I had to explore it. I mean, I'd be sued. I'd owe them money back. It would be, not a good thing. So I just thought, in all respects, I might tell a few friends, and I'm going to leave it at that.
Yeah, networks are tough. You're right. You're right about that.
Well, I mean, and that's where it happened with Survivorman. Now, I have not yet got to the story of how I came to make the series, but there you go. Those are the on-the-ground experiential things that happened before I started filming Survivorman Bigfoot.
Well, isn't that a shame that what stopped you was the network? And that's what always stops everything on these shows. And that's why, hey, I that's my background as well, working on shows, pitching shows. And it's always the network makes some decision, and you just want to scream because you're going, think out of the box, network, come on, because when those things happen, heck, you could have done that a long time ago, and you would have been the first one coming out with all that a long time ago.
Well, yes and no. I mean, I will tell you unabashedly, and my network, if any of my network cronies or counterparts are listening, they're going to laugh because they know I'm not that producer. I don't do what the networks say. I make the shows I want to make. People see my work. They're seeing my work. I've got things on those shows that the networks screamed and yelled and did not want me to put in.
Excellent.
But because of the nature of my deals and so on, I said, no, I'm the artist here. I'm the filmmaker. I'm the storyteller. This is staying in. And for better or for worse, in the end, they always go, yep, you're right. And I go, yeah, I was. So why were you so chicken at the time for me to do that? So, it was more a matter of I was busy being Survivorman, sort of.
I gotcha.
Survivorman,
I gotcha. Well, by the way, for you doing that, we thank you. We all thank you for, showing your creativity and standing up for what you want to do to the networks and things like that, because, I can tell you for me, I totally appreciate that you do that. And, it is funny because, I'll look and watch all the credits to see, okay, who did that show? That's of interest to me. What production company did that? And then so I looked at one of your shows the first time, and it was like Les Stroud, cameraman Les Stroud, producer Les Stroud, executive producer Les Stroud, writer Les Stroud, music Les Stroud. I was like, well, this is Les's show. So that's when I realized how much you did with the show.
Yeah, it's been, I would be the first one to give intense kudos to those people that I do work with, the Barry Farrells and Wendy Turners and Max Atwoods and various.
Oh yeah, I saw their names.
But it's of course, it's my brainchild. I mean, I'm that kind of, I dare I say, artist. I like, I do my work. I'm not interested. I'm not a television production company. I'm not interested in cranking out 150 episodes a year, and I make my documentary films. That's what I do. I tell the stories of those in those films, and so it's always been important to me. And thank God that my creative partner Barry Farrell, who's my head of editing, is just as much of more interested in being an artist than we don't do conveyor belt editing. And later on, as we're talking about Survivorman Bigfoot, there will be stuff I can tell you about, that the networks did not want me to talk about. But I did anyway, because, hey, this is my story here that I'm creating. And I guess the difference is I'm not in the business we call it a commission show or a co-production, and I'm not owned by any one network. I mean, God bless Discovery Channel and the Science Channel. They have been fantastic to me for many, many years. But I'm also owned by some other networks in Canada, the Outdoor Life Network and so on. And so there's a few people that help me, that provide for me the opportunity to make this show. What that does for me, though, is it also means that, well, none of you in one instance own me. So, you've got to go with my artistic instinct.
And that's what I love. That's what I love. We're going to be talking to you more and find out about all the Bigfoot shows and what they told you not to do and what you did do anyway during those. So please join us, stick with us. We've got Les Stroud with us here, and we'll be taking your phone calls later as well on Coast to Coast AM. It's Coast to Coast AM, broadcasting out of more than 600 affiliates, Puerto Rico, Guam, Canada. Good stuff there, stray cuts. I'm Connie Willis out of Louisville, Kentucky. 840 WHAS iHeart Studios. So I want you to stick around. We're going to be talking to Les Stroud some more, Survivorman and Survivorman Gone Bigfoot. Also, hey, you're thinking about dancing around to music like that. That's what I do. Check out coasttocoast.com. coasttocoastam.com, and I want you to look at one of our feature stories on there. It talks about video, and it says ants dance around an iPhone. So it's these red ants are dancing in a bizarre type ritual right around the ringing of the iPhone in the video that's on there. So, I don't know. Pretty interesting stuff. If you're not a Coast Insider as well, you'll want to do that. For some of those of you that say, oh, I'm going to fall asleep, well, then, hey, don't worry about it. You can catch it the next day being a Coast Insider. It's a fantastic website. It's great to hear the shows later if you miss them throughout the evening. We understand that. That's why we did all that kind of stuff. So interesting stuff on there, especially the ants dancing around the iPhone. That is very cool. I got to watch some more of that. Les Stroud, still more to come. We are going to be taking your phone calls. Don't go away. More fun coming up. And by the way, those of you that were telling me about the audio with Les, we worked on that a little bit. He's in some sort of hotel room, traveling around, doing all, the man is busy like all get all. So we're going to use a cell phone tonight, something we try not to do. But in this case, we want a whole lot better audio than what that hotel is. I don't know. Maybe he's I don't know. We'll have to ask what kind of hotel he's hanging at. Hey, more to come here on Coast to Coast AM. It's Coast to Coast AM. I'm Connie Willis, and our guest tonight is Les Stroud, Survivorman. And Les, thank you for changing phones. First of all, what kind of hotel are you hanging out in?
Apparently one that doesn't have a phone that works. Anyway, it's funny you were playing. You made a joke about the Stray Cats. In fact, the Stray Cats were a nice bright spot of the '80s, and friends of mine I've been invited to come out and play with them at some point, which I've not been able to make happen. But if the boys are listening at all, it's a shout out to them because they were just a fantastic band.
I love them. They were what a sound, what a sound. And you playing with them, that would be fantastic. That would be great. Do you ever do?
I would definitely blow some mean harmonica with them. That's for sure. Brian Seltzer is one of the greatest guitar players going.
It'd be fun to listen to. Are you when you're out at the campfire and you're out in the middle of nowhere? Are you playing with the harmonica? And do you think, by the way, that it might help in the Bigfoot world of trying to pull them closer to you at all?
Well,
curious about music.
I mean, you've kind of jumped right into in the middle of the potentiality of what's going on with when people go out and they start researching and trying to figure out how can they connect with this phenomenon. I don't know the answer to that. I think that it's certainly a matter of curiosity. If you've got someone out there playing a flute or a guitar or a harmonica, then you become an attractant. You become an oddity. You become a curiosity for whatever might be out there. On the other hand, you also might scare things away, too. I mean, I play a harmonica if I'm going through really thick black bear territory, just to, not that I'm worried about black bears at all, I never am, but it just keeps the road ahead of me clear, I think.
Well, how did it all start with you? So we won't skip around. How did it start with you when it came to the Bigfoot with Survivorman?
Well, originally, you fall into these things, right? I think what had happened was, just feeding off the last thing we spoke about, I never told anybody about my situation in Alaska. I just left it alone because I thought I don't want it to detract from Survivorman, because boy, if I mention Bigfoot with everything I do with Survivorman, that's all people are going to want to hear about. So I didn't want that at the time. I wanted to concentrate on Survivorman. Well, I went on a radio show, a comedy radio show sort of thing, and a rock radio type thing, and we were talking about Survivorman and this and that, and all of a sudden, out of the blue, one of the announcers goes, "Hey, man, have you ever seen a Bigfoot out there?" And well, me being me and usually extremely candid, and I don't pull any punches, I thought, well, if he's going to ask, I've never been asked that question before, and I just went, as a matter of fact, I think I might have. And of course, that just stopped the interview cold right there. They went, what? And all of a sudden, the interview became about my Bigfoot experience. And I ended up telling my whole story. It's a radio show by a couple of guys called Opie and Anthony. I ended up telling my whole story on air. Well, that's fine. Well, I didn't know that was going to kind of, tip things off, because all of a sudden that just sort of started taking off. And now everybody was, that interviews after that would follow, people would start asking me again about Bigfoot. And then being a documentary film producer, being an active artist, being a guy who likes to be productive and doing a lot of work, and the fact that I love the phenomenon of Bigfoot, I love the whole everything about it. It's just ridiculously interesting. I thought to myself, well, I wonder if, and now bear in mind at this point, now this is a couple years after that interview, Finding Bigfoot comes on television. And and again, I believe that a lot of television shows now that cover the subject do so with their own agenda as to what they think the subject actually is. And that's not actually criticism. That might be a fine way to produce something. But nonetheless,
what do you think their agenda?
One should be.
What do you think their agenda? What do you think Finding Bigfoot's agenda was, or is? I think they're still on the air, right?
Again, and I'm glad you said, "What do I think?" Because it's only what I think. It's not what I know. But my understanding of people who've been involved in that is that they're focused on the phenomenon strictly being a flesh and blood ape.
Oh, I gotcha.
So what that means is you aren't going to get the other 80% of the story that's going on out there, because we're not going to talk about that. And I don't know. I haven't watched the show in a long time, so I don't know if they've ever decided to expand. But my understanding is not a chance. Well, that's not me. I'm a documentary filmmaker, so I wanted to simply approach the subject and be open to all of the possibilities.
Absolutely. When I interviewed everybody the very first time, I had just gotten out of just years of research with UFOs and abductees. I mean, that was some crazy stuff right there. And to really go into depth in that area and then go and, let's talk to some Bigfoot folks. And then I started hearing stories similar to what abductees were talking about, where there were lights in the sky and mind speak instead of telepathy. I mean, it was just going right along with what I was hearing from alien abductees, and I couldn't believe it. And I didn't hear it from just one person. I heard it from another and another. And you have the people that believe that side of it, and you have the other people that believe interdimensional. And it's you got to be open to it. You got to learn what it is, because nobody knows, or they're not telling.
Well, to answer your original question, I mean, I thought to myself, well, I'm going to call the network and suggest that I do a Survivorman Bigfoot show, because I've been inundated with people asking me about my experiences. And speaking as maybe as a businessman, I thought, oh my gosh, that's almost like two brands coming together, Survivorman brand and Bigfoot brand. How cool is that? So now I'm thinking, because again, I'm just a regular guy doing the stuff that I love to do, and I thought this could be a lot of fun for me.
A lot of fun.
So we attempted to do the first two shows, and indeed it was quote unquote a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it, and that's why I turned to the networks. I said, look, I'm really loving doing this, and even though I'm doing some survival for this, I'm not suffering like I do when I do a Survivorman show. So I can actually do more of these, which you're always asking me for more episodes. You always want more, and I can't give you more because I really do what I really do out there. I don't fake this stuff and stay in hotels. So, but Bigfoot, boy, I could give you lots of those because I get to eat. I get to maybe sleep in a tent. So that began Survivorman Bigfoot.
Is that what you mean by not suffering? The other ones you had to suffer because you couldn't eat, or what?
Well, sure. I mean, on Survivorman, it's like how many times in a year can you go 5 or 7 days without any food?
Mm.
And so Survivorman is a rough go. I'm sleeping on the ground. It's survival. It's completely alone. With Survivorman Bigfoot, I could be with a team. I could meet new people. I can actually have food. I could maybe stay in a tent. I could stay out in the bush alone at night. I mean, the whole thing was, if there's one person who's willing to stay out in the woods at night, alone, and survive out there, and to see about a possible, Bigfoot interaction or encounter. Well, Survivorman's that guy, and I knew that, and so I thought this could be really great. I think I could really enjoy this.
It's perfect for you. So, how did you pull together the first couple of episodes? What was your okay? We're going to do this. Then what? Who did you Why? Who did you pick? Who did you decide to pick? Why did you pick them on your first shows? How did all that work out? Because there's a lot of people you could have went to.
Well, there is, but you have to imagine too, and I think this was actually an advantage. I was not part of the Bigfoot community. To me, that's an advantage because I didn't have my biases or my agendas, and I didn't have my associated friendships. Oh, I'm going to make sure I go to this guy, that guy. So when I sort of opened this up, well, basically, coincidentally, at the very same time, unbeknownst to the fact that I was hoping to do a Bigfoot show, I started being contacted by Todd Standing, which is sort of a little bit infamous in the Bigfoot world, out in Western Canada, and he just kept saying, "Look, I've got this thing going on, and you're the guy I want to take out to show what I've been seeing." And he was quite a big Survivorman fan, and he just felt that if he could get me out there, he could bring some credibility to the reality, both of the phenomenon of Bigfoot, but also to his work as well. And so at the very same time I'm thinking I would like to do this TV series, I'm getting those emails from Todd, and I'm thinking, this is pretty damn good synergy. I'm not going to turn away from this.
So now I know there's a lot of controversy with Todd. What do you feel about all that after you went out yourself with him?
Well, I think that this is a pretty interesting community of people.
It is.
A pretty collection of bizarre characters and interesting characters and highly intelligent characters and really fanatical characters. And I think that all of them should give up the witch hunt when it comes to what everybody else is out there doing and concentrate on the phenomenon, concentrate on Sasquatch, concentrate on intelligent information gathering. I think of Derek Randall's and the Olympic Project, and projects like that where people are trying to get really solid information, statistical data that they can, everyone knows it in the court of law. If you drop a book down full of dates and ledger lines and everything, you've got it helps you win the case. Well, nobody's doing that for this, and so everybody's hooked on witch burning a guy like Todd Standing, and to me it's like that's just unnecessary. I'm not going to vouch for him, but I'm not going to vouch against him either. For better or for worse, he's dedicated and devoted to researching Sasquatch. Is he a liar? I don't know. Is he completely truthful? I don't really know. But the point is, this guy, I will say this in his defense, he is climbing mountains. He is spending endless hours, or at least was, out there trying to research this subject he loves so much. Now, is he faking some of it and creating film? Again, I don't know. I can tell you that when I've seen the dissection of his footage by other people saying, well, this is, I can also then dissect their argument and say, yeah, but you're missing something here. You're saying this because you're just, people just say stuff because they just say it. And then all of a sudden they're claiming authority, and it's like, you know what? I'm not going to vouch for the guy, but I'm not going to damn him either. Why don't you research your research? Let him do his, and this isn't a race. This isn't a battleground. And let me go there for a second, Connie. That's one of the things that I discovered is in this whole, huge collection of characters and people, intelligent and interesting, who are interested in the phenomenon. The backstabbing and the snickering and the it's out of place and it's inappropriate because it's not helping the cause. So look at, maybe this guy over here thinks it's only an ape. Okay, he may uncover some incredible information focused on that. That person over there thinks it's an alien who travels through the portals. Okay, let him go there because he may still yet uncover something that's really intriguing and convincing. But but there's just too much judgment passed around.
I absolutely agree with you. I love hearing that. But what's great is when you watch the show, you are so good at not playing that, you're saying it. And you cover all sides of it, and just like you just did now. And I love that because you're not saying this is it and this is the way it is, everybody. I love that. You're open up and saying, hey, take a look at this, take a look at that. You decide. Here it is. What do you think? And I love it.
The reason why, Connie, is because I don't know.
Yeah.
And
nobody does.
And when someone talks about this particular phenomenon and says they know, well, it's like, I'll still listen to what they have to say. I mean, Todd's like that. He's a very, very passionate, you know, and you just want to say, ease the passion back, ease it down a little here. Let's stick to facts. Let's stick to what we know, and let's find some more interesting things out. But when we start saying, I know it's this, and I know it's that, but have no proof, we don't look good, you know.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to do that with my show. I wanted to say, okay, you know, I explained it in one of the episodes. I think it's episode 7 maybe, where I say, look, you know, over here you have Gigantopithecus, ape believers. It's an ape. You have Jeff Meldrum and John Bindernagel, wonderful, respected men, really intelligent individuals, wonderful scientists, and they're very much convinced that it's over here. It's some kind of human-ape hybrid maybe, or pure ape but highly intelligent. Over here, on the far right end of the scale, you have, it's an alien. It's a byproduct of alien genetic testing. It travels through portals. It's a fifth-dimensional creature. Right in the middle, you have a lot of various attributes that sway back and forth, but either way, you have a battleground. And all the people over here that want it to be purely science, that doesn't even smell of metaphysical anything, cannot stand the people over on the right side of the scale who are snickering at the ape believers because they know that they're, you know, they're aliens or what have you. And I'm looking at all of them saying, you know, get your act together, because the rest of the world is laughing at all of us. The rest of the world is waiting for us to say, here's the smoking gun. And none of us have the smoking gun. We may have it personally, we may have it individually, but none of us have it in a way that we can present to the public, you know, at large. So until you've got your smoking gun, you can't make these outrageous claims. Let's just all work on this together, kind of thing. Maybe I'm too altruistic. I don't know.
Well, I love hearing that you are, you know, a part of the community. You are saying us, we, and I like hearing that, because you've really jumped in. You've really jumped into it. How can you not?
Yeah, I don't think I could claim not. No, it's funny because, you know, believe me, I've taken so much flack on my Facebook pages and Twitter pages for doing the Bigfoot show, but I don't care. I'm doing what I do in my life. You know, I go after the things I love to do in my life. And if you don't want to watch my Survivorman Bigfoot show, well, don't watch. Don't tell me not to do it. Don't watch it. Go watch something else. You know, go watch, I don't know, Naked and Stupid or whatever those shows are called.
Yes. Yes. Oh, I can't believe, obviously, I think they have another season coming up, too. But I think somebody at one point wanted to do Naked Paranormal. I don't know if that ever went through or not, but I certainly hope not. That's not going to bring any more ghosts or Bigfoot closer to you. It's just going to make you, I don't know, but I just hope that one doesn't go through.
I'm with you on that one.
Well, I love that you're a documentarian. I love that you do the work that you do. It is fun to watch. It is very different. And I don't know if I have enough time to ask you this question before we got to go, so I think I'm going to save it for the next hour. Well, I'm just going to ask you real quick. Do you know the show Alone? We got 1 minute. Have you seen the show Alone?
No, I haven't seen enough of it yet. I've only seen glimpses of it.
I loved it.
But I'm facing a lot of Facebook stuff right now on that, and I can comment on that after the break for sure, because I might get a little verbose, as you can tell I do.
Okay, I can tell exactly. That's what I thought. I know that'll be good. I'll leave a little hanger there. I'll leave a little hanger, because that's a show that I enjoyed watching, and watching these people living alone out there in the middle of nothing, just hoping to win $500,000. And I thought of you throughout the whole time. So if you're just joining us, we're talking with Les Stroud, Survivorman. We're talking about him and his Bigfoot experiences. So stick around with us. We're going to be talking to him more all night long. We're going to be taking some phone calls so you can talk to him as well. You're listening to Coast AM. How are you? Connie Willis here on Coast to Coast AM, talking about being blinded with science. You know, we have a TV show as well, right, that George heads, Beyond Belief. It's at did I say it 3 times? beyondbelief.com. You can always check on coasttocoastam.com to find it. And you can watch some Cosmic Disclosure with Corey Good and David Wilcock, too. That's on beyondbelief.com. And for the night tonight, we've got Les Stroud, Survivorman. we found out a lot about his little past of, wanting to be Tarzan one day and Jacques Cousteau and great stuff. I'm with him totally 100%. Love talking to him. We've got more to talk with him about with his Bigfoot shows and how all that came, all the neat little things that happened. I'm looking forward to hearing more about that and what he thought about the Alone show that has just been out recently and just finished. And we are going to be taking your questions tonight, so prepare something cool and neat, and remember that there's going to be a bazillion other people wanting to call in too, so stick around. Les Stroud on Coast to Coast AM. So tell me about that song there real quick before we talk about Alone. The Cost is what that was called, and what's your backup band there?
Well, and I've got, as I was mentioning earlier, I'm actually working on sort of an epic kind of art rock album called Survivorman's Mother Earth, and that's, as I say, it's art rock. It's more like Dave Matthews meets Tool, I think, than anything else. But I also, along the way, I love my singer-songwriter genre, and so about every 24 months, I produce an album live off the floor, everybody, one room, one place, all together in a barn or something like that, and I call it the Barn Sessions. And that's from my last Barn Sessions. That's a song called The Cost, and we're all there. There's no overdubs, there's no fixing of the vocals or fixing of any tracks. It's just, okay, we got 5 chances at this, guys. Let's get it right. And it's a wonderful way to produce an album. And I'm about to produce my 3rd Barn Sessions in about a month. So.
Oh, I like it that way. It's kind of like doing radio. A lot of people want to do tape shows, and there are people that will tape their radio show and then air it later. And I'm like, well, that's just too much work. You got to get it on the first take. You got to do it live and just make it happen. You got more energy that way. At least that's how I feel about that kind of stuff.
Oh, I agree. I agree 100%. Yeah.
Well, you are known for, of course, a lot of people say the original creator of survival TV. In fact, I think it's really cool. You've been nominated for 17 Canadian Screen Awards, including Best Writer, Best Photography. And then all of a sudden, here comes a show along called Alone. And they kind of did what you have done. They go out. It was a competition of, I think it was 10 men that went out into, I think it was also the Vancouver area. And they were seeing how long they can live there, and the one who lasts the longest won $500,000.
I mean, no, you're not suggesting it's derivative now, are you?
Well, I was watching. I was like, well, oh, wow, wait a minute. That's what Les does. He's because they had to do all their own camera work.
Yeah, it's. I mean,
what do you think?
I mean, sure. If you watch how the whole thing started, I mean, Survivorman was the first, long before the Man versus Wilds and the Dual Survivals and the Man, Woman, Wild and the Naked and Afraid and all these different shows. And now Alone, Survivorman was the first. And the thing is that I've been asked a lot about when I say, look, the shows are staged. I mean, in many cases, I know the producers, I know the scenarios. It's like, I know very well, how staged they were, and in some cases, like Man versus Wild, they tried to backtrack and backpedal and say, no, we figured you knew, and no, you didn't. You tried to get away with it, and you just got caught. That's all. Now you're just making it look, doing some fancy footwork. I mean, a lot of people would not know, and I know this from being an insider, that the entire first season of Man vs. Wild was pulled from the air and re-edited to take out all the lies. Now comes along the current phase of producing, and you get a show like Alone. Now, I have to admit, I haven't seen it, so unfortunately, I'm kind of talking out of the left side of my face here when I say this stuff. But I have had friends of mine in the industry watch it, and as a TV producers, when TV producers watch shows, we watch it with different eyes. We're very jaded eyes, and they go, oh yeah, like we can tell in 60 seconds of watching a show, going, oh yeah, that's staged, and we just know it because we have the eyes for that. It's what we do, and we produce television, so we can see when stuff is produced. Now with Alone, I have no doubt these guys are going through some tough stuff. But the problem is that producers need to deliver big time to the networks content, and so they get nervous, and that's how they end up scripting things and putting things in place. So let's take, for example, the show Alone. Again, qualifier, I have not seen it. But
yeah, you have to see it.
Producer friends who've seen it. So let's take a look at that. apparently there's a guy who they interview him, and his big fear is bears. And another guy, they interview him, and his big fear is wolves. What are the odds that right where that guy is, there's some bears in the trees? What are the odds that where the other guy is, there's a pack of wolves? You know, you have to start asking yourself, okay, hang on a second, you know, and thinking about staging things and staging stories.
Yeah, they definitely could have placed them. You know, yeah, they could have placed them without a doubt.
Let's not. I'll say point blank as a producer, it's not a could have. It's the way you deliver to the networks. You are under a contract. You're getting X amount, hundreds of thousands of dollars per episode to deliver a show that works. If you don't deliver as a producer, you got to pay that money back. These producers have to deliver, and that's why it's like you've got to create guarantees. Well, we need a guaranteed squabble between these two people. We need a guaranteed injury. We need a guaranteed problem. We need bad weather. Well, we got beautiful weather for 3 days. Okay, let's hold the filming for 3 days because we got a big storm coming in, and then we'll pick up the filming. You see what I'm saying? Like, this is actually what goes on.
Oh, and, yeah. I know. You're right about that.
You know? Yeah, I mean, like I said, I did it on Facebook the other day. I said, you know, I hate to burst people's bubbles, and I don't want to, tell everybody there's no Santa Claus, but guys, like, you got to. If you could only see these shows with television producers' eyes, you'd spot the fake right away.
Yeah,
I
understand. I think that's why I like The Loan so much, because I think you're right. I think they could have certainly placed them in the areas where they could get spooked really quickly on what their fears were, without a doubt. But it was cool
I would go a step further. I go a step further, Connie, and present that in shows like this. And they're going to bring in an animal wrangler because the budget's going to be great now. Because
gosh,
made a big stuff, and they're going to bring in an animal wrangler and make sure that we've got let's get that shot of that bear, but we need them in the background, so we need the bear in the foreground. So this is how this stuff happens, and people
you're
really
right. That
need
stuff
to wake
does
up,
occur.
Understand that.
It does occur, and in fact, there's a lot of shows that I had pitched and put together, and because they wanted certain things that had nothing to, it was just ridiculous. Why do we have to do that for the show? Especially paranormal shows. To me, paranormal shows, you don't have to make it crazy, and you don't go off to the left of the subject or to the right of it, because the audience knows when you're faking stuff too. When it comes to the paranormal stuff, I mean, you've got that niche audience is watching.
Sure.
They're loyal.
Oh, absolutely, Connie. I mean, I was asked to cheat.
It just kills me when they do it.
Point blank, cheat my show so that I could deliver way more episodes. And I was I'll even quote the network executive at the time, who shall remain nameless, and she said, "No one will know, Les." And I said, "I'll
you
know.
will exactly.
I will know." And so, yeah, the thing is, here's the thing. People, I've got shows pitched to me. Even just recently, someone pitched me a show, and they said, "Oh, and something crazy happens every week." And I really want to say,
smack.
No, it doesn't. The crazy things do not happen every week to people. Most of us are slow and boring, and not much really happens. So that's why producers come in and they have to write their stories. And that's why I told the networks. I remember when this came up, and the networks wanted me to introduce this and that and the other. And I turned to the one executive and I said, "So what you're telling me is that one man alone in a jungle with no food and no water, filming himself for 7 days, is not dramatic enough?" And I said, "Yeah, no, that's all I'm doing. I'm not going to introduce silliness and stories that aren't there. But that's me. I'm a rarity in this scenario, and I'm stubborn about it. But these other guys who so you got to picture it. You know the business, Connie. You're a producer. You get the contract. The network says, "Yeah, we want 13 episodes of this," and you're like, "Oh my God, we've got the oh shit." Excuse my language.
Oops.
We have to deliver now. We have to deliver now. How are we going to? Well, you better start coming up with some good stories right away. Okay, well, this guy, and then you can see how it works. This guy's afraid of bears. Okay, we've got the budget. We get a black bear. Let's wrangle a black bear and maybe some cubs. Let's get them in the foreground. Let's get it. All we need is a shot. We just need one shot. We get one shot, and then we're going to play off this. You see, this is how these things developed. And again, I caveat, I have not seen it, but my producer friends have, and they're like, "Oh my God, it's staged as everything else." That's what they're telling me. And so when I watch it, I'm already, I don't want to, obviously I've already got an opinion, but
That's
and
true.
the rest
That's
of
true.
the shows, far more. I mean, all those other survival shows, ridiculously staged.
Well, it's good that you're where you are because you can get shows shot the way you want. You can say, look, I'm going to do the Bigfoot show, and I'm going to do it this way and that way, and I'm going to keep it real, which is what we all appreciate. And you're bringing in a whole new audience, and they're seeing it as a for real way, because let me tell you, there's a ton of people trying to do shows, and they're also trying to do it the real way, but they don't have that, known Survivorman thing that gets you up a different step to where these other people, they can't do it. And then you have the other group of people that are like, okay, I'll fake whatever you need to be on the show. And they do, So,
well, and it's not even so much. I mean, it's you get the people who are on the show who, let's face it, everybody wants to be a TV star, and then it's the producers. It's the producers behind the scenes. They want their next contract. They want more episodes next year. I hate to say this, and I mean this in the nicest of ways, but I've never. I don't care. Look, if you want me to sell my soul to do this, then I'm out. See you later.
Yeah.
I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm not going to give you my soul for this. Here's my. And as I said, again, and I don't mean to be pandering, but God bless the networks like Discovery and Science, because they believed in me all along. They've known that even though they might put on other shows that I might disagree with, they let me do my thing, and they've supported me, and I'm extremely grateful to them for that, because I'm a stubborn artist, and they fight with me, and they get mad at me, and we have our arguments. But
I bet
my instincts have been good. I'll tell you a Survivor. Do I have a second to tell you a Survivorman Bigfoot?
Yes, absolutely.
Opinion?
Sure.
So in that one, for example, and again, my counterpart at various networks is various executive producers, and they're smart people. But when I said, "Hey, listen, another part of this Bigfoot phenomenon is metaphysical. It's their mind speak, telepathy. It's spiritual. Oh my gosh, that was such a tough sale.
I bet.
I said, I'm making a documentary series about Bigfoot, and this is the truth about how people research this phenomenon. I want to talk about it. I'm not saying Bigfoot's an alien. I'm saying I want to talk about the fact that many people think Bigfoot's an alien. And so it was a tough battle, but in the end, the show did fantastic, and they loved it, and they appreciated it. They still don't, certain producers still didn't want to accept it or agree with me, but the show got made and it went to air the way it should, as a documentary talking about all of the aspects of the phenomenon.
It's nuts
that's
they
just me putting my feet in, drawing my line in the sand. That's just the way I am when I produce my stuff.
Well, you should. I mean, here they are wanting crazy stuff, and the crazy stuff is the actual stuff itself. I mean, it's nuts to us, anybody that researches, anybody that goes out there and has seen something. It's still like, oh my gosh, did I just see that? Because my life has changed now. My perspective on the world is different. And they even think they're nuts. I mean, when you experience anything, you feel like everything I ever knew was wrong. And it's crazy right then and there. You don't have to go creating anything. And why not go and stretch and reach out to what other people have seen? And they'll swear up and down, and they'll sell their first child to let you know, hey, this is real,
Well, that's just it. And when I pay homage to all of the possibilities start coming out of the woodwork even more, and I get the emails and phone calls and about saying, listen, this is you don't have to come, but and some people are like, I don't want to be on your show. I just want you to, they've seen what I've done, and I want you to come and experience what I experience out here. And the thing is, it's the nuances of a phenomenon like this that are ridiculously fascinating and compelling, but it's the nuances that are very difficult to film, which is why TV producers, quote unquote, have to make stuff up, because they got 43 minutes they got to fill, and it's got to be a story arc. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And where I'm just like, you know what? It's the nuances that I want to challenge myself to capture on film, because that's the story. It's not making stuff up.
Yeah, and it really is a tough thing to try to capture one of these on video in a camera, on a camera that's not blurry, just at all. And so here you are now going out there with a ton of equipment, with a lot of expertise. One of the things as well that is on your side is the fact that you will go alone if there is somebody else with you for other shots. There might be a few more people, if that, and that's what I want to hear about, because you have to, you can't go out with a big crew of people and expect for that to happen. So when we talk about this, I know there's a lot to talk about with it, but that's what, I think you've done it right, and you have the best chance of anybody with the expertise of it, of the cameras and what might be going through their heads living in the woods and being Survivorman for so long. You would be the real Tarzan. And if you are the first person to get, the next person to get some really good video footage, you're trying to think like it, to capture it on video, and you're really putting a strategy together.
Well, and that's the difference with Survivorman Bigfoot. That's what I wanted to do. I didn't, again, like the conversation we've been having, because we tangented around sort of the process of filmmaking and the world of television, but I didn't want to make a television series and fulfill my quota and make my numbers and get my budget. I wanted to research the subject and film it and film my research. So it makes it so that everything I'm doing for real. And if Connie Willis says, look, I've got interaction going on down in this valley and no one knows about it, and I've been feeding them apples and stuff's been going on, and I have casted footprints, and I'm willing to allow you to come into this valley, then I'm going to honor you and join you and bring my cameras, and in some cases we'll have a crew because we want to set up stealth cameras and stuff, and in other cases, okay, this is the moment where, you know what, we've done everything we can, we need to leave me alone out here. And that's where I'm willing to go the extra. And a show like Finding Bigfoot's never going to do that. They've got to deliver. They got to get all those episodes on air and edited quickly,
Well, we will deliver some Krispy Kreme donuts because I know they like that. More coming. Coast to Coast AM, Connie Willis here. Guest tonight, Les Stroud, Survivorman. And we will be taking your questions next hour to see what you're interested in talking about. Coming up, we're going to ask him about his thoughts on Bigfoot. What does he think Bigfoot is, are? Where are they? What are they doing? What's it all about? And is there anything beyond Bigfoot as well that he's experienced? So stay with us with Les Stroud, Survivorman, and myself, Connie Willis, here on Coast to Coast AM. With stations all over the U.S., North America, Puerto Rico, Guam, satellite, we are everywhere. We are Coast to Coast AM. I'm Connie Willis, and honored to be hosting tonight with Coast to Coast. Thank you, George Norrie, as well as it's a pleasure to talk with Les Stroud tonight. Les, I got to get into the Bigfoot stuff. We got to get deeper into this. What do you think this creature could be? Do you think it's real? What are your thoughts so far? Because you've gone into this quite deeply, I think, or not deep enough.
Yeah, well, and probably not deep enough. I mean, it's how deep does the rabbit hole go, right?
Right.
You're asking the $1 million question. We could spend the next 14 hours talking about, let alone.
Bring it on. We got it. Let's go.
And for me, it's very much like that. It's once you start researching this phenomenon, for me, there's a time where you get to a place where it's like you decide, am I going to take the red pill or the blue pill, and find out just how deep the rabbit hole actually goes. And it does seem to be a very slippery slope, and it gets very deep and very even complicated or simple, depending on how you look at it. I'm just going to be a little tangent comment in that recently, even I think, a very new and very refreshing theory has come to light with a gentleman that I've actually been able to get out on the land with, Christopher Noel, and he's got a new book out called The Mind of the Sasquatch, and he's starting to draw and how superficial these are at this point is arguable, of course, but he's starting to draw parallels between some of the attributes and activities of Sasquatch, of what people talk about happening, seeing, feeling, experiencing, and autism. And the interesting thing about this is, if you want to play over on the left side of my scale, my arbitrary scale, and talk with people like, say, Jeff Meldrum and John Bindernagel, and talk about it being potentially a hominid species or a very intelligent ape, and you bring that into it, you say, let's take a look at some of these attributes, the swaying back and forth, the intense ability, the savant-like abilities. There are things that are hard to deny in terms of going, well, at least being ridiculously interesting. So this is brand new. As far as I'm concerned, it's one of the most refreshing new perspectives on what this phenomenon is that I've heard in a long time, coming from Christopher Noel, and he's focused on it. And he's going to, and like we were saying earlier, to deny someone who wants to focus on it being an alien or focus on it being an ape is the wrong way to go about it. And it's let them all sort of utilize their research favorite directions and go that way. And Christopher is doing it with potential autism-like links. So I could carry on from there, but maybe I should let you step in before I sort of get where
No, that's interesting. I hadn't heard that one yet, and I have talked to many people that have seen lights in the sky, actual men in black cars, black SUVs show up out of nowhere where they don't even say anything, and they have access to areas that no one else does when these things have been seen at the same time that the lights and the men in black have been seen. I've talked to people that they talk about the portals and seeing these things in like this portal, and then they would talk to them, and they would only talk to, there might be a group of 4 or 5 people, and 2 people hear the talk, the mind speak, and the other ones don't. However, the other ones know clearly that something happened to those other 2 people because they see them in a way that they've not seen them before. So they know something happened, but they weren't privy to it. So you hear that kind of stuff too. You hear soccer ball size orbs around the woods where these things are seen. So you do hear the alien UFO kind of connection a lot of theories of them living underground. That's pretty interesting as well.
Yeah, very much so with a lot with the underground thing. And this is here's my thought on this. Okay, and then I'll tell you about my lights in the sky. During the filming of Survivorman Bigfoot, and it's a scenario that I did not put in the show. I think I might have touched on it in narration, but it became one of those battlegrounds with the networks of how far do we go with this? And
what is the truth?
And as yeah, exactly. And what I wanted to say was, look. Again, if I go back to my scale and I think of the learned associates, people like Jeff Meldrum and John Bindernagel, wonderful scientists, the Olympic Project, Derek Randles, and the material that they're gathering. The thing is, the way I see this phenomenon is it may very well. Okay, first of all, if I'm going to go on a limb, if I'm going to say what I
yes,
and again, you're asking the question the correct way. What do I think? That's it. That's all I got for you. It's what I think. I don't know. It's just what I think, and I'm basing my thoughts on my own experiences as I go through them and being out in the bush. Now, here's the thing. When I started doing Survivorman Bigfoot, I went at it strictly for Gigantopithecus, and thinking that this is an ancient hominid / ape type species that may still exist in pockets around the world and has a substantial population existing in North America, is incredibly stealth-like, incredibly intelligent. And as I said, if you bring into Christopher Noel's new theory, where perhaps they're like savants, and well, what's their savant specialty? Well, perhaps their savant specialty is staying hidden. I don't know, So I was down. I was staying there for the beginning of Survivorman Bigfoot. But the more I spoke with people, the more I got out there and then began to experience some of my own things, the more I went, hang on a second. I accept all of the ape theory, hominid theory type stuff, but that you're still missing a massive percentage of anecdotal references and experiences and claims going, what about those? Because those things are starting to corroborate. Those things are starting to add up in a statistical place. So wait, and so my mind is saying, there's something more here. Where I go with it is probably somewhere in the middle. I think it's a collective of many attributes. If we put all the attributes on the table, mind speak, or let's call it just telepathy for lack of.
But you can't, because telepathy is the UFO ET world, and when you're talking Bigfoot, that's the more Native American. There, you've got to go with the Indian mind speak. So sorry, I had to cut you off on that one.
Well, no, but I mean the thing is, again, my point has always been, does it have to be either or? When we lock ourselves in one place and say they are only these things, we're locked in, when in fact they may be these things and those things, if you see what I'm saying.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And there's a lot of people that follow that. They think some are one way and there are others another way and others another way. Yes, absolutely.
Well, exactly. I mean, if the only part that I'll go out on a limb on, other than the fact that I'm sharing a lot of my stories and some of them I haven't shared before, is that I personally believe that whatever it may be, that it's hominid. It's not strictly a really smart ape. And my ape theorists would say, "Oh, you don't know how smart apes can be." It's like, yeah, okay, I get that. But I'm seeing other attributes that I think go much farther, and whether it's connected to aliens or whether it's connected to Gigantopithecus, either way, it could still be a hominid. And that's where I say, you see, like we find that place where it's funny because my partner and I have been discussing the differences between Hickham's dictum and Occam's razor. I've been trying to really learn how to use those properly and describe them well and without being wrong in my definition. And that's what we're looking at here. I'm over in a sort of Hickham's dictum kind of guy where I'm saying, well, it can be many things all at the same time, can't it? Or it can be multiple things, can't it? And that's what I think is going on here, and that's what's frustrating us all. Because over here, we have all these attributes, and over there, those interactions have all these other attributes, and they're different. And so when you've got someone from Ontario saying, I'm going to tell you what they are because of my experience, and you get someone from California saying, no. I'm going to tell you what they are because of my experiences, and I'm saying, well, these may be different. They may be different, just like humans. It's the same species with very meandering attributes and abilities. So the thing is, look at it like abilities.
Well,
as I said.
Well, where you are right now, after hearing other people and your own experiences and your own time out there. What are you thinking right now? What are your thoughts as of right now?
I think we're looking at a hominid species with the kind of level of abilities that scare us. We don't want to know that something has more abilities than us for one attribute or another. Now, if we're talking about the ability to mind speak or telepathy or the ability to cloaking or a savant ability to remain hidden. Either way, we as humans, we don't want to hear about it if it's better than us. Aren't we the top of the food chain? Aren't we the king of the castle? It scares us to hear stuff that challenges our own abilities. And look, we're awkward, hairless, we can't swim very well, we can't fly, our eyes aren't that great. There's a lot, we've just got phenomenal brain power. And dexterity with our hands, sort of thing. But we don't want to hear that there's a species or potentially a species of hominid-like creature that has abilities that are greater than ours in certain areas. Now, Sasquatch do not compose symphonies. They don't build cars. They don't build cities. They don't do any of those things. But maybe in their savant-like abilities, they do other things. And they have commanded this. Another theory postured by Christopher Noel is that perhaps they're so well aware of this fact of how they are that it's almost like an unspoken understanding. Don't let them see us. Don't let the humans know too much about us, because when they finally do figure us out, or if they get indisputable evidence, we're done for. They'll figure out us. Maybe that kind of thing going on. It's a very slippery slope, Connie.
It is. So maybe we don't want to think that the boogeyman really is out there and that he's
we don't want
smarter than us. He's of higher intelligence.
Exactly. If the boogeyman's got some skills that we don't have, well, that's
he's smarter than us. That's supposed to be in nightmares.
I'll tell you what happened on when I was shooting in Radium Springs.
Okay.
And this was the second episode with Todd Standing. That's the second episode of the season, Survivorman Bigfoot. And when I was up on the mountain alone, and this was, and again, so what am I doing with Survivorman Bigfoot? I'm saying, take me into your hotspot, tell me all about it, show me. We'll stay out there together, and then leave me there alone. And I'll just stay out there alone because I'm okay with that. And so I did that with Todd, and I went up to the top of this mountain that he claims is an extreme hot spot, and he has all these experiences. If you watch the show, you'll see a lot of, obviously, what happened. You'll see the apples disappear on the tree.
Yeah.
So let's go there first.
Okay.
Okay, so the apples on the tree. And let's not argue about whether or not we should be baiting or whether or not this is even going to work, because some people
I think it's cool. I think it's great.
Exactly. You just said it right. It's cool. So why not do it? Because it's cool. Let's see,
see what happens.
So, yeah, and besides, the fact of the matter is, when I go in someone's area, I honor their version of the story.
Yes.
And Todd's version was to bait them with apples that he claims they come in and take. So we stick them high up in a tree, so that we can rule out certain creatures. If you want to rule out rodents and birds and deer and elk and stuff like that. So we'll put them high up in a tree. At least that rules out sheep, rules out elk and deer. And I put on, and then I do the next thing. I going with the friends of mine who want me to do it all like stealth-like. I am technologically oriented. I put out the cameras. So we got the motion-censored cameras out there. And I think, there's no point in camouflaging this camera. I mean, let's just stick it there. And it's filming, and it's got a motion trigger. Now, the interesting thing is that night, I was able to show how sensitive the trigger of the camera is, because even dust particles would set it off for 30 seconds. Now, it's got a wide shot of an apple in a tree. When I say a wide shot, so for those who don't understand filmmaking, imagine you are taking a photograph of your friends, but you're standing, 50 feet away. So you're getting in the Eiffel Tower and your friends and the parking lot all in the same shot. Now, if those friends are going to move, you're going to see it for quite a long time in your frame of view of your camera. So I set up my camera like that. So that's how it's looking at the apples. So imagine the apples in the distance, stuck on the Eiffel Tower, and it's a big wide shot. Well, if something's going to come into that frame and take that apple, or it's going to fall off and fall to the ground, the camera's going to record that imagery. But that's not what happened. The apple is on it's recorded. Here's the interesting thing is, there's a 30-second video clip of the apple sitting in the tree doing nothing. Well, my first question, which I kind of forgot to pose, was, wait a minute, what triggered the camera for that shot? There's nothing in the frame, but it's filming the apple sitting there. Okay. The next frame, the apple's gone, disappeared, vanished. And I am choosing my words carefully here. I say it that way, vanished. Mm-hmm. The camera should have recorded whatever took it. And I've got, an owl swooped in so fast and grabbed it and kept on going. It's like, I say poppycock. I know these cameras. And, they were filming dust particles, for goodness sakes. And then what was interesting about the apple disappearing was, so I showed that in the episode. I was down in the edit suite with my editors, and by chance, one of my editors goes, "Hey, Les, what's that thing in the bottom corner that happens at the end of the clip?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" I hadn't even seen it. And he goes, "Come over, take a look at this." And I go, and there's that little head bump in the bottom corner of the same clip the apple is missing from. 30 seconds of video footage, black and white video footage at night, and some forehead bumps the bottom of when I say bump, I mean it came into frame for a split second. Now, you can tell it's not the head of a bear. There's no ears. You can tell it's not an elk. And by the way, I always like to mention, whatever it was 7 feet tall, because that's how the camera was set up.
Wow.
So that was one thing. That one night, everything happened. So that's one thing that happened, and all of that is on the Survivorman show. And people who, should I take a break with you? I got to make sure I get so verbose when I start talking.
No, this is great. You know what? I'll just cut you off, and then I'll bring you back. It's okay. You just go.
You do that.
I'll be good at that.
Yeah. So that everything happened this one night. So that happened this one night. Okay. The other thing that happened, and I did kind of explain it a bit on camera, but I talked about how, I tried to stay up all night. I even took a little drink of, the 5-hour energy drink. I took a little shot of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I thought, you know what, I want to be up all night because I'm alone on the top of a mountain and basically waiting to film Bigfoot. So, all right, so, I'm up really quite late at night, and I'm just sitting there, and I'm relaxed and everything. I get a little campfire going. And I thought, well, now, it's getting, I should try to snooze a bit. So I get into my sleeping bag. And I'm not asleep for very long. And, we can call this a coincidental dream. I will admit that absolutely we can call this it that. But I woke up at one point, or it felt like I woke up at one point, and I couldn't move. And I was inside my mummy sleeping bag, tucked in like a mummy, so my head's inside. Couldn't see outside. And all I can tell you, Connie, is that my feeling, my anecdotal story here is that what I felt like was like something big was sitting on me. I could feel the buttocks on the side of my right arm. I was sleeping on my left side, and I could feel large buttocks on the side of my right arm, and I couldn't lift my right arm up. Now I'm waking up at this point, and I can't lift my right arm. Now, normally, if you fall asleep on your arm, you can't move it, and you dream weird things about your arm and all sorts of stuff like that, and then you realize you're on top of your arm, and it's got no blood in it. Right. This was my free arm and my free side of my body. And I was gasping trying to get out of my sleeping bag, and finally, the second I popped my head out of my sleeping bag, it went, and it was just gone. Whatever that, and so again, let's call it a coincidental dream. For the sake of skepticism, let's just say I was dreaming. But I'm telling you that I do know the difference between dreaming and awake, and this was like I was pretty awake when I was trying to get out of that sleeping bag.
Wow, I've got an answer to that, or at least what somebody else might have said when we come back. We'll definitely talk about that. We're talking with Les Stroud. I'm Connie Willis, Survivorman, talking about Bigfoot on Coast to Coast AM. Thanks for being here. Hey everybody, I'm Connie Willis, and here tonight we've been talking with Les Stroud, Survivorman, having a great time with him. He is wonderful to talk with, very down to earth, learning a lot about him and what he thinks about the Bigfoot, and we've got more to come. Stick around for that. Just wanted to remind you real quick, we are approaching 23,000 members for ParanormalDate.com, and now Hollywood may do a reality show on it. That's how big it's getting. You can sign up for free at paranormaldate.com, and you can learn anything and everything else you want about it too on coasttocoastam.com. More Les Stroud and myself coming up here on Coast to Coast AM. It's another interesting show here on Coast to Coast AM. I'm Connie Willis with the real theater of the mind happening with Les Stroud. Les was talking about being in his tent and feeling something on him, big, heavy on him, and the buttocks was in your face or on your face. Is that right, Les?
No, actually on my rib cage, on my arm.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. So I know what one guy may say. First of all, was it like sleep paralysis, do you think?
No, and I know what that is. And I remember even going through a period of sleep apnea when I was younger, but no, it didn't feel like that at all. It was a completely different scenario. As I said, I was next level past lucid. I was just trying to get out of my sleeping bag.
And you couldn't get out?
No.
The weight was on you. Well, Dr. David M. Jacobs would probably, most likely, I've researched him for a long time. Do you know who that is?
I do, yeah.
Okay, he would probably put it as in, hey, because he would say a lot of things that you think you see a ghost, you think you see a clown, you think you see a demon. He would put everything to an ET, and he would say that from what you just described, you were probably going through an abduction, and that's what you remember. And then when you woke back up and everything was gone, he would relate it to something like that. What do you think of that?
Well, that's the other part of the story that I haven't told yet, and that I didn't actually bother to get into on camera. It was one of those things where, first of all, I was talking about the missing apple. Now I'm going to this point of saying I got this weird thing that I'm feeling when in my sleeping bag. Already, when I'm delivering the show to the network, I'm like, oh, good Lord, this is going to be an argument. I can feel it coming. So the next part, it's like, you know what, for another time, another series. Well, that night, long before I went to bed, and I'm wide awake, and I'm having a grand old time on the top of a mountain. I got a fire crackling. I looked over, and here you go. And for the first time in my life, I saw 4 massive lights in the sky. I'll give it maybe a mile or 3 away from me. So huge. There were 4 big round lights straight across in a line, slightly clustered together, but straight across in a line, and so massive. And I watched them for a while, and I thought, okay, well, if that's an airplane, it's the most massive airplane in the entire world. And I thought, well, if it is an airplane, then it's obviously it's going to come this way, and it's going to go right overhead, and I'm going to know that it's an airplane. And but I just sort of let it go. And here's the weird part. Here's the really weird part. And let's just say that one of the attributes that certain researchers give to this phenomenon is their ability to kind of connect with you mentally, to influence you mentally, to it's almost like redirection, get you thinking the other way, get you thinking the other thing, distract you, that sort of thing. Well, okay, let's put this in perspective. I'm on the top of a mountain, supposedly filming some phenomenon that people talk about, and now I'm seeing for the first time in my life, lights in the sky that I can't explain. I've never seen anything like this before, and I've never thought I've seen a UFO or anything. I can't explain these lights. Why didn't I film it?
Right.
It never even occurred to me to get my camera. I got 5 cameras there. I've got stealth cameras set up on trees at night, apples stuck in the branches. I'm waiting to film a Bigfoot. Why didn't I? Because my mind was, I was like, there's the other very human side of this. I'm thinking, you know what? If I film that and it turns out to be an airplane, I'm going to look stupid for my editors. I'm not going to film that. So it's the whole human thing. It's like, it'll
Dude, be stupid. Don't worry about it. Get it, right?
Exactly. So I walk away. About 20 minutes later, I go, a few minutes later, I should say, I go back. The lights are still there. They haven't moved. Now, they're not attached to the land. And they haven't moved. And we're talking,
wow.
I don't know if I can say how massive these lights would have been, but I'd say maybe 15, 20 times bigger than any airplane lights, And then, I walk away. I come back. They're still there. I still, not for an instant, and I'm a professional filmmaker, not once did I think I should get the camera and film that. I didn't even think it would make a cool part of the story just in case. It didn't even occur to me.
Mm-hmm.
Baffles me to no end that it didn't occur to me. So I walk away, I tend the fire, I go back, and the sky's empty. There's nothing there. That's all of that happened on the very same night. Everything happened, I think, actually within the same hour or two, as a matter of fact.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, that other people could look at that and think it's not even Bigfoot; it's more ET stuff.
Well, this is. I mean, if you follow, I don't know if you've had David Politis on the show.
What a fantastic guy, huh?
Yeah. So Dave and I have worked together quite a bit, and I support a lot of the work that he does, and he was actually very instrumental in helping me do my work in the Hoopa Valley and also in the Smoky Mountains of Tennessee. And of course, David's he's a very interesting guy. I love speaking with him. I love learning from him and talking to him. And I can get him alone and get him to, because I'm a no holds barred kind of guy. I'll look and I'll say, "Come on, Dave, what do you think it is?" And I'll force him into the issue, and I won't go there because what he tells me privately. But I mean, certainly his research on UFOs and the Bigfoot connection is extensive. Those books are are incredibly meticulous because he
Yes.
approaches it like an ex-cop, which coincidentally he happens to be. So
He happens to be. He was just on about 4 nights ago, something like that, here with George Knapp.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
That's terrific. Yeah. No, Dave and I have met and talked many, many times. And
Yeah, he speaks highly of you.
Work I did. Well, we work together well, and it's for the same reason. And he was also one of my first entries into opening up my own understanding of what might be going on out there. Because basically, I have this stuff happen on the mountain and a few other strange things, mind speak and those sorts of things. And then I'm like,
you did get mind speak.
Something else is going on here.
You did get mind speak. Oh no, absolutely! Come on.
Well, there's another episode, Smoky Mountain, Tennessee episode.
Okay.
And if you watch that episode, you'll watch me walking out of the forest at night, and I'm feeling very Survivorman, kind of cocky and like, yeah, I got this down, no problem. And I'm walking along, and I say to the camera, I say, I got that feeling on the back of my neck. Well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm not going to shrink from this. I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop and see what happens. Let's see what happens. Let's see where the boogeyman is. Come and get me. So I do that. I absolutely stop, and I wait. And you sort of see me a bit on camera, and I'm like, okay, well, the feeling's gone now. Nothing happened. Might as well keep walking out. And so in a way, I'm pointing out to the audience, and I'm saying, look, I don't shrink from these things. Let's face these things head on, because that's the only way to get the truth, to get the answers.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what also happened was I was instantly stopped and hit in my head with basically, I don't know what you want to call it. I mean, I'm hesitating. Obviously, you can tell I'm being shy about it and hesitating, but it was a voice. I heard something just instantly, really strong, and I mean, it was so strong that afterwards, when I went home, I went and talked to a few people and I said, look, I want to know, am I messing with like schizophrenia here? Like, what's this? I heard something that I've never experienced before in my life, and basically what I heard was, we're right over here. We're 2 hills away from you. If you want to see us, stay.
Wow. Did you listen?
And I literally said, I answered in my brain, but I answered, I said, you know what? I'm not ready. I'm not ready for this. No, I'm going to keep going. And then I said, you know what? And I literally thought, I am not ready for this. This is because you got to think, at this point, I'm filming films about what I think is maybe Gigantopithecus, a hominid species with some, a cool ability to be stealthy and hide from us in the forests of North America, around the world. That's what I think I'm filming. And then I come out, and this stuff is happening before I meet David. Well, not before I meet David Politis, but before people are telling me about all these other attributes. This stuff that happened on its own, without that influence, without the power of suggestion. Then I start interviewing more people, and all these, identical stories start popping up, and I'm like, uh-oh. And that's when I'm like, crap, I'm down the rabbit hole now.
Well, it's very interesting that you said that, because I had an experience very, very similar to what you got with MindSpeak.
And do tell.
Well, I was, okay, and I'll hesitate too.
So this doesn't happen in an interview very often, does it, Connie?
No, I'm turning it around. We're talking about you.
I told you mine, you tell me yours.
I was out with some people in an undisclosed area of Alabama, and Pat Rance, Keith Tyler, Willie Douglas, Mark Green, a bunch of good guys that really taught me a lot. And this was the first time I was ever out there, and they allowed me in. And I was in this tent that was like the ones that you pull behind a vehicle, but it lays out. It's still above the ground, but it folds out. You know what I'm talking about? And beds are on both sides. Mm-hmm. You familiar with that kind of camper? So you're
absolutely.
off. Okay, so you're off the ground, right? But it's still a thin tent all around you. And I'm a researcher. I love to go out and I want to experience. When people say things, I want to go. Usually things do come to me for whatever reason. And I knew really nothing about the Bigfoot, but So I went and was totally prepared, as much as I thought. I was just going to go and get interviews and talk to people and learn and that kind of thing and do documentary type stuff like you. And we had taken a long trip, and we found the area to put the campsites up, and so we were pretty exhausted. And it was late at night. I can't remember the time now, but it was pretty late, and I think everybody else was asleep before me. But I laid down on my side, and you're exhausted at that point. Drove probably 8 hours or more. Didn't really sleep the night before. All this stuff happening and all the stories, and fell right asleep. However, within about 45 minutes, something woke me, and it wasn't. I just woke. My body woke, and I thought, what just happened? I didn't move, and something woke me, but it said also just I don't know what happened. It was very different, but I woke up, and every cell in my body woke up and felt good. It didn't feel groggy or tired or what are you doing, go back to sleep. It was like, awake. And I thought to myself, okay, I need to pay attention to this because every cell in my body is awake, and it seems to be okay. And I shouldn't be okay. I should be exhausted. So I thought, okay, let me just, what's going on here? And there was a push underneath the camper. It was a deliberate push, and it rocked the camper. And I thought, whoa, what was that? I just know I'm in the middle of nowhere, and there's supposed to be a couple tribes of Bigfoot here. So I was like, wow, okay, well, maybe I, went back to sleep or something there, Boom, it happened again, another push, a shove. I mean, it seemed as though something intelligent and I don't know why I would think that, but my ambiance, my thought, my intuition said something placed its hand in a certain area and then pushed intelligently, knew what it was doing with force. And it happened twice. And I said, well, okay, I didn't imagine that. It did happen. Then it happened a third time, and it had moved onto another part of it, and then it happened 4 times. And it was, I think, in 3 different locations, and I never heard any rattling, nothing moving, no twigs breaking or leaves, and it was during a time where you would hear somebody walking around. So that was kind of like, what's going on? Because something had force, and something had intelligence, and something had deliberation. It knew what it was doing. And next thing I know, I'm kind of like sitting up, I was scared because I thought something's out there. And we actually did have a small light on in this tent, so you can see silhouettes of what's in there. And I kind of sit up on my, I kind of roll over on the other side to see if the person that's on the other side of the tent wasn't moving it around at one point. And then I kind of laid on my back and up and looking to where what's in front of me is the tent. And there's a zipper there. And so I could have easily taken that zipper and rolled it down and seen what was out there. My intuition was telling me there's 2 things right there in front of me, right on the other side of that thin piece of material that was between me and something else. And what I heard was, it's weird, it's different. It's not like people think, like when God comes down and blah, you get like this message, and it's instantaneously, and you kind of get the message in the words, but it's not like somebody just talking to you. And I'm sure you can understand what I'm saying. But what the message was to me was, here we are. This is what you came for. And it was like, take a look. It was like, unzip it, and you'll see what you came for. And I did what you did. I said, I'm not ready yet. And I wasn't. I'd just gotten there. I didn't know they were coming. I didn't have, come on, people talking about it. I'm going to interview people. It's great. I really didn't know what was going to happen. And I wasn't ready for it. And I said, I know you're there. I know you are. I'm not ready for it. And it was almost as if the answer was, okay, that's cool. Next thing I heard was they were over next to, Pat had all these neat things out on a table, and it was as if they were picking up each thing, looking at it, and putting it back down. And, that was one of the mind speaks I had, and it was absolutely incredible.
It is really incredible, and you're right. I mean, it's a thing where you just you know it.
You know that you know.
It's instant acceptance. You instantly accept that this is not of you. It's something other.
How cool is that we have that communication? How cool is that?
Well, I think that if we approach these things in a very calm, sedate manner, that's when you're going to be much more open to possibility. One of the things I like to talk about is when you look at this. I mean, it's so funny because I've done this television series, Survivorman Bigfoot, and it's been on mainstream media, and even to this day, I'll relatives or friends or family or whoever, and who to have the conversation with and who not to. Who to
this is true.
Things around and who not to. And when you get that, Survivorman Bigfoot, or let's say, did Bigfoot. Oh, is there more than one? I thought it was just one. And right then it's like, okay, well, so I know I'm not going to get into this conversation right now. And so there's that sector of society that just has zero knowledge whatsoever, and so they want to snicker and laugh and joke. But this is not. We're not talking about the Loch Ness Monster here, or Okopogo in Canada, or one thing. We're talking about something that is responsible for hundreds of thousands of anecdotal references. Now, these are anecdotal references, but life is built on anecdotal references. And they corroborate, and they repeat themselves over and over again, unbeknownst to each other, and in varying landscapes and distances apart. And at some point, I read it somewhere. I thought this made a lot of sense. That at some point you look at all the evidence, and you actually look to be more naive if you deny the evidence. Once you see that it's all there, and if you still deny it, at that point you're looking naive, as opposed to the other way around, saying there is an existence and being accused of being naive.
Wow, love it. We got to hang, Les, I tell you, by a campfire. More Les Stroud and your phone calls next here on Coast to Coast AM. You're listening to Coast AM, and this hour we're going to be taking your phone calls and questions for Les Stroud. Les Stroud, Survivorman. We've been talking to him all night, and the rest of the hour is going to be dedicated for you guys calling in and talking to him. By the way, the music that you've been hearing along the way, besides Willie and a couple other things, you've heard Les Stroud's music. Him singing. He's got some people behind him working with him, too, on some of the songs, or all of them. I guess, you know what? Go to coasttocoastam.com, and we're going to have that stuff posted for you, and you can find out where to go and listen yourself and check it all out. Good stuff for sure. There's no question about that. So stick around. If you'd like to ask Les a question, now will be the time to do it here on Coast to Coast AM. We are back here, Coast to Coast AM. I'm Connie Willis, and we're talking with Les Stroud, the Survivorman. We're talking about his Bigfoot series and his experiences that he's had. And wow, been some pretty interesting stuff. Talking about all the different people that we've run into and met along the way. Les, have you ever worked with, or do you know anything about William Dranginus? Guinness. I always say his name wrong. He's going to kill me there. William Dranginus.
No, I get his name wrong as well, but I don't know enough. I don't know enough about his work. Have you interviewed him on the show?
I haven't yet. I'm looking forward to doing that. He's a senior science technologist and worked in the intelligence industry, and he had something happen in '95 in Virginia where he was with 2 FBI agents, and they were like out searching for gold and little detectors and things like that, and they had an experience there. And the other guy as well that these are fantastic people to talk with and learn about, and hopefully you can do the same because they look at you in a credible way as well. Bill Munns, who do you know anything about Bill Munns, who analyzed the Patterson-Gimlin film?
Yeah, I do, absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, so these are 2 cool guys that I've learned a lot from, and I don't know, you can go it's whoever you run into and you meet and you hear their stories, theories, and thoughts, and then, everybody's has something different, and that's why you got to listen and be open to every one of them, just like you're talking about. That's how you live and learn.
Well, and I think for me, too, one of the, I will give a nod as well, a very large nod, actually, to the fact that in my documentary, quest of researching the phenomena of Bigfoot, was tapping into the Aboriginal communities of North America, which were very, very welcoming for me. I think many of them were fans of Survivorman, and they recognized that I was going to respect their wishes and their ways. And I've been in touch with a lot of Native communities, and what a difference that makes, because their association and their connection to Sasquatch is it's another level altogether.
I agree with you. I mean, that's something they've known and grew up with and were taught from their ancestors. I mean, that's just the way it is. It's just part of life. They don't dispute it whatsoever.
No, I mean, if you see the very first show I did up in Clemtu, Canada, up off on the coast of British Columbia, and the community there was wonderfully welcoming and had no qualms at all about opening themselves up to me. And the fact is that when you start to embed yourself and speak with, or my friend Inker down in Hoopa, California, when you speak with Aboriginal individuals, for them it's often they just take it for granted. It's like, oh, they're almost like, oh, you guys are just getting into this now, yeah.
I know, right?
And that's it. You know, they just carry on. They don't even think twice about it.
You're right. I love that because they can tell you so much. Well, are you ready to take some phone calls?
Absolutely.
We've got him. Okay, first-time caller Monty in Peoria, Arizona, has a question. Monty, are you there?
I am. How you doing, Connie?
Welcome. I'm doing great.
Excellent. Les, what can I say, man? Connie, you got the real deal. Survivorman. He's the man.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Hey, you know something? I'll tell you. I've been following you, watching Survivorman, and went to your concert in Modesto, and all I can say is when you mentioned Bigfoot, the crowd just went, whoa, really? It's awesome. And I have a cabin up in the forest in Flagstaff, and 10 years later, I've never seen one. I've never really seen any signs or heard of them, or heard them, or it. And I'm just wondering, my question to you, Les, is what's your take on the Roger Patterson video that they have? That footage has been around forever. What is it, from the 70s or something? And I'm just wondering, what's your take on that? The scientists, they talked about it, and they said it's a female, it's got breasts, and it's got, it's organic and everything. What do you think about that?
Well, I think that, it becomes really, I'm going to approach it this direction. It's really easy for people to sit on a couch and point an accusational finger and never go off into the wilderness and never go to experiencing like that and just say, this is all poppycock. What a bunch of nonsense. What a bunch of jokers. And look at that film. Obviously that guy faked it. Oh, what do you mean he was actually trying to make a film like that? And he actually saw them on the last day. What a coincidence. What a lot. And it's really easy to approach it that way. I have no problems accepting the Patterson Gimlin footage. I've met with Bob Gimlin, and I've sat down with him, and I interviewed him at length and in detail. And yeah, sure, I'm all I'm doing is considering myself judging someone that I don't know that well, but that's what we do in life, right? We try to get a read on people, and I've been reading people all my life, and I have no. It's like I was saying earlier to Connie about knowing that the other survival shows are faking it, because I'm a filmmaker and I could spot it a mile away. And when it comes to that footage, and when it comes to Bob Gimlin's story, I'm not seeing any of the red flags that would say fake, fraud, joke, liar. I don't see any of those. So my position at this point, and I've been down to that site, I've been to that location. I did it for the show actually, and it was kind of cool because it's like a Bigfoot Mecca thing to do, going. And I went down there, and as I say, interviewed Bob, and I'm down with it. I don't have any issues accepting that footage as being real.
Monty, thank you for the phone call. Wow, to talk with him, that would be really pretty cool to do. So good for you. We're going to go to wild card line number 2. Amber's on the phone from, I think it's Kutztown, Pennsylvania. Is that right? Kutztown?
Yeah, Kutztown. Hey, Connie, what's up? How you doing?
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing well. I talked to you back in January when the Lycan droid thing was going on.
I remember that. Wasn't that something? Wow, that's kind of close to this subject as well.
Oh, yeah, it was. Anyway, Les, my dad and I used to watch you a while back, and I think my dad still watches Survivorman, when he has trouble sleeping at night, puts on the Science Channel. Well,
that's terrific.
Yeah, good show. You know, I remember watching you eat insects, and I'm like, well, man, how does he do that? That's gross. Anyway, so to my question, back in November, Lynn Marzulli was on here, and he was saying that, you know, there's a pretty good theory going around that Bigfoot is Nephilim, and it's debatable where Nephilim comes from, but either way, it's a hybrid between human and either ET or angel, depending on what you want to call those things. Anyway, last night, Melba Ketchum was on with George for about 5 minutes, and she said that there was some study coming out that said that at least, you know, this is just what I'm thinking, at least one of the types of Bigfoot is a human hybrid. What do you think about that, Les?
Well, first of all, I think the whole Nephilim theory, I mean, what you've got going on is, you know, historical reference and thousands of years of time passage and religiosity and where we're going to go in terms of, you know, the dogma of religion and what people believe and what we think. It becomes very clouded over time. What it points to wonderfully for me is more the fact that, yeah, it was there then too. You know what I'm saying? Like, in other words, its existence becomes anecdotally referenced even in the Bible and throughout various pages of history. That's what I love about that, is now whether or not we can get a spiritual bearing on it and say, oh, it's this or it's that, then that's not. Sometimes I like to say we aren't going to know until we die. Then we'll know it all. But at this point, you know, connecting it directly, it's a wonderful connection to make. But we're guessing. But the best part is that it links it to history. And that's what I think I love about that the most. And I just want to get to the second part of your question. What was the second part of your question with reference to Nephilim?
Are you still there, Amber? We might have taken her off.
Yeah,
there she is.
Was Amber.
Yeah.
Yeah, here I am.
Hi,
the
Amber.
second part of the question
Amber.
was.
Yeah,
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
yes.
Just give me the end of your question again. I want to make sure I answer it properly.
Okay. Last night, Dr. Melba Ketchum was on, and she was talking about a study that was going to be coming out soon, that the results were that Bigfoot is a human hybrid.
Oh, yes.
So that's where it connects to
So
Nephilim, and I was asking what you thought about that.
Yeah. So I know my friend David Politis is a very, very, I don't want to misquote him, but I'm pretty sure he's a very strong supporter of the Melba Ketchum study. It would be my guess that's exactly what we're dealing with, that, you know, some kind of hominid hybrid of what? I don't know. But the thing is, it becomes very arrogant for us to think, and when you get out there and you really see how big this planet is and what's going on, and to believe that we've really got it all down scientifically, it becomes very arrogant and I think very naive. And so when people like Melba, and I've never met her, I don't know her, but when we start looking at, well, could this species be a hybrid of various species? I hate to lower this, but my answer is almost like, well, duh, yeah, of course it could be a hybrid. I mean, what it's exactly what it should be. Is we're all a swirling pool of genetics and DNA, and so I think absolutely, I think she's onto something, and I think that's eventually when the phenomenon is right in front of our faces, and there is no more denying what's possible with it, then we'll get our true answers on the scientific specifics. And for now, we're just starting to go down those roads.
Amber, thank you for your question. You know, when you were talking, Les, you said something about one day we die and we'll know everything. I agree with you 100% on that one. We will definitely know the answers
that's the hard part.
one day. Yeah.
We have to wait for them to be like, oh, that's what it's all about. Okay, I get it.
Yeah. I don't want to go to the light yet. So let's go to wild card line number 4. Mike from Livermore, California. How are you, Mike?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic, and a great show tonight. Great guest, Les. I'm a big fan of yours, Survivorman.
Thank you very much.
To me, it's all about the realism of it. You know, I don't need excitement or, you know, flashing and all that stuff to enjoy a TV show. And yours always just seemed so real to me, and your heart was in it. And thank you so much.
Oh, I appreciate you saying so. And in fact, I haven't had a chance to mention this. I'm sure Connie probably asked me later, but be happy to know that there's a bunch of brand new episodes coming on to the Science Channel and Discovery Channel, and in Canada on the Outdoor Life Channel. This fall, actually, within weeks, I've just delivered my first episode as a full edit, and we've got a bunch of new ones coming on.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it. My question is, there's been a guest on Coast to Coast several times I've heard. Usually George Knapp is interviewing him, and he's talking about disappearances of people in North America, and specifically in national forests and stuff like that. And a lot of the incidents involve children, and they're so small that they end up miles and miles away and up ridges and over across rivers and everything else, that they just can't imagine that the kids could have done that. And I remember one little girl when she was interviewed, had said something about that she was okay that the wolf man was feeding her, and she was fine and all this stuff. And I just wonder if you've ever heard of these stories. You have a few books out. I'm sorry, I can't remember the name of the author, but if you've heard of them and what you thought about them and how they might relate to Bigfoot.
Yeah, sure. Well, and I know as Connie would answer this question very well. Also, we're speaking about David Politis, his Missing 411 book series, and you've quoted some of the stories almost perfectly, actually. And David and I have spoken at length many times, and I met with him and his son, who's actually also a budding filmmaker. And they're actually doing they did a crowdsourcing because they're going to be doing a documentary based on their own documentary based on David's work. And you know what I've loved about David's work, and if the networks were to allow me to go and do more series with Bigfoot, and that is to go to the place that, again, not too many people are going, and that is. Okay, so I've been discussing, talking about all these potentialities for what this phenomenon might be. And, we put out apples, and we look for tracks, and we hoop, and we holler, and we knock trees, and we hope to get a picture, and we hope to connect with them, and we hear minds speak. Well, there's a dark side, too. And David is really, for some reason, one way or the other, I think, inadvertently, focused on what is the dark side. And because I think we're dealing with a hominid type of species, of phenomenon, that's what you're going to get. You're different types of people, different moods, different structurally, and so I think that's what David's really focused on is really pinpointing all of the dark side. And when he did that, he came up with his clusters, the disappearance clusters. And here's the interesting thing about this whole thing. We don't know exactly yet how, why, or what, but we do know that for some reason they definitely have physical attributes. They definitely seem to bleed and eat and sweat and smell and make noise and leave tracks and have hair. So whatever their otherworldly connection might be, or metaphysical connection might be, or what other special attributes they might have, they certainly have enough anecdotal references that says they are flesh and blood, or that they exist somehow at times as flesh and blood, that they interact with the flesh and blood world, that they eat animals and fish and plants. And so one can, it's not a stretch to think that, they're not all going to be nice. And that's been the focus of that. Well, David would explain it much better than I would, but I have all the books, and to me, that's the way I kind of knock it all down. It's like, wow, Dave, this is like the dark side of Bigfoot.
And they talk about the wolf. They talk about the wolf head as well, where they see, a wolf walking. Yeah. So
that's
you got both of those going on.
Dogman.
It is,
Interestingly enough, when I first got into doing the Survivorman Bigfoot, all of a sudden I was faced with stories of Dogman and stories of little people and stories of it, and all of it. And then I was like, whoa, I actually had to filter a lot out and say, you know what? I got to stick to one thing right now. If this is a slippery slope and a rabbit hole that goes deep and opens up to makes sense, right? If there's one thing, well, what else is there then? That's the bizarre part. If this is something, if it's real, what else is there?
Yeah, and you've been filtering pretty well. You really have. Here's one of the things I always wonder about is, when you hear what David's doing with the missing 411, that's scary stuff. And here, when I've gone out, I don't have a gun or anything. You're walking out in the woods. You're vulnerable. You're going when it's dark and just a camera, or a flashlight or something. And it's, and people put their kids out as bait, in tents, and they walk around with their kids all the time. And they say, oh, we feel good about it. In fact, they get closer to us because they're curious about kids, and they don't ever feel like anything's ever going to hurt them or attack them. And they haven't for decades, and from their grandparents have told them as well, these stories. But yet, you have what's going on with what David's talking about with missing 411. So that stuff, always a lot of conversation when it comes to these types of stories. And we've got Les Stroud here that is helping us try to figure it all out with all the facts and all the stories that we're told. So stick around, more questions from you for Les Stroud here on Coast to Coast AM. Johnny, Willie, Waylon, Chris, the Highwaymen. Oh, good stuff here on Coast to Coast AM. Connie Willis here. Hey, be sure to watch our TV show, George Norrie, Beyond Belief, at www.beyondbelief.com. Watch Cosmic Disclosure with Corey Good and David Wilcock, too. That's beyondbelief.com. We're taking your questions for Les Stroud. Les Tarzan Man Stroud is his new, how he's going to be on TV now. That's how he's going to be known. Our final segment is here. We're taking your questions. Hang on the line to talk with Les here on Coast to Coast AM. It's Coast to Coast AM with Connie Willis and Les Stroud, the Survivor Man, our last segment here, taking your questions. Les, how you doing? You hanging in there?
I'm doing great, Connie. I was just thinking, full disclosure, you asked me earlier what was my quick sort of synopsis on what this thing might be. I have one other theory that is my own that I like to posit. It's this. What if this phenomenon, this species, this being, what if it understood how to control its own vibrational force? Just drink on that for a while and imagine the abilities it would have if it could control. I mean, we've all been told ad nauseum that we're all different, we're all the same thing, we're all energy vibrating at different speeds. So imagine if this thing understood the laws of the universe and knew how to control them.
And that would make
a lot of questions.
Yeah, that would make a lot of sense too. They're there, then they're gone.
It just answers a ton of questions. And so this whole, as I say, this whole silly battleground of everybody who wants to know, everybody disagreeing with each other and pointing fingers. I mean, maybe it's, I'm going to be rather facetious right now, but maybe it's a gigantic Pithecus who's hybrid with the human who has the ability to cloak and use infrasound and know some aliens. It's like, it fits it all in one nice little picture.
Okay, I'll throw one at you. You ready? Since you're going there. Okay, what if they are the real Wookiees, and they are guarding the Greys, and the Greys are doing something where they're like maybe coming here for minerals and gold and, any of our precious metals, and the Wookiee are there keeping us away from what's going on. Or maybe they're the miners.
Now what we both have done, as we've done the thing that my friend Mr. Joe Rogan just can't stand. We've used the phrase "what if," but for me, that's really the magic of all of this. It's really it's about trying to get to the bottom of things. You have to say "what if" before you really learn what's really going on.
Yeah, you got to ask the questions. And isn't this more fun than talking about politics?
Infinitely.
Absolutely. Let's go to the phones here. A lot of people wanting to talk to you, Les. Let's wild card line number 5. Let's go to John, Long Beach, California. How are you tonight, John?
Nice to talk to you. I wanted to tell you, I've read those two. I've conferred with David Polides over the internet. I'm a journalist, and we talked. I read those books. They're among the most frightening books I've ever read because they happen to real people. It's very frightening. But I just wanted to mention that. But I wanted to ask you, Les, if you had the ability and knew somehow that there was a Bigfoot or whatever near you, mind control, or you saw something, or you saw him, let's say 100 yards away, would you walk up to it if you were by yourself, maybe with a friend or whatever, but by yourself even more? Would you walk up to it and approach it and try to get as close as you could, take a picture of it or whatever? Or would you, when you got to the moment of truth that Connie talked about a little while ago about being in the tent, what do you think you'd do? Do you think you would, at the last minute, say, what if this thing would kill me? What would be your thought?
Well, the first thought, he said no.
I think the first thing would be, and this, I give a kind of a nod way back to Mr. Standing there, and that is to recognize that if they're there, I don't think the concept of me being particularly having the physical advantage. I'm not going to have the physical advantage. I'm going to be extremely submissive, and likely.
I'm asking you.
I don't think I would hesitate to. No, let me rephrase that. I would approach. Yeah, I do believe I would, but I would approach like you're approaching a great ape or royalty or a lion or something. It'd be like, all right, I really don't think this is going to harm me, but I've got to enter this scenario with the most respect I can show, so to speak. I think there'd be a lot of fear there, no question about it.
Well, John, what about you? Would you?
I think I've asked myself this question. A friend of mine in West Virginia, there's been some sightings in West Virginia where we're from. There's some desolate, out, just completely desolate land you can be in. And he was out there and said he saw a Bigfoot, and he ran, and he thought it chased him for a while. I don't know what I think I would. I think I would approach. But like you said, it'd be like approaching a pack of pit bulls. You would be very with great caution. But I'd like to know. I'd want to know. But I say that now.
Remember the scene? Do you remember? I heard this. I heard a story once of a young boy that kind of fell and actually sort of curled up in the field and kind of lifted his arm up. And apparently the Sasquatch came and basically just touched him on the head and then walked away. And do you remember the scene in the new versions of the Planet of the Apes, where the first show where the big mean chimpanzee in the zoo finally submits to Caesar, and he holds his hand up and they just brush palms. It's that whole showing of submission, saying, "Yep, this is your world. You've got this now, and I'm just going to let you know that I'm not going to challenge you." I definitely wouldn't do anything in a challenging sense. I guess that's what I'm saying. So the whole
I'm just talking about approaching
thing about
it
let's grab our. Well, the other version of this, the killing Bigfoot, shooting Bigfoot. Let's get a gun. I consider that a lot of buffoonery, to be honest with you.
I don't. They're like a human being in a way. If they are a human, it's a living thing. Why would you go just to shoot it to prove that it exists?
I know, that's people that think that way.
Well, it's a pure scientific approach. A scientist is going to say that's the only way we can do this, and I understand that. But it's I'm an avid hunter and all the rest, but it's just not my way. If I were in that scenario.
Thanks, John, for your question. Really appreciate you calling in. Somebody had asked me earlier, they wanted me to make sure I asked this. If you think they exist, Les, how many in North America would you think would sustain a healthy population without interbreeding? Do you think any of that might be going on?
Well, I'm not a biologist, so I can't. I'm not a wildlife biologist, so I can't answer that question from a scientific basis. What I can say is that to get this kind of anecdotal references, there's no way that we can be dealing with a few dozen. And the estimates that are given are all nothing more than guesses for sure. But my guess would be that we have to be into more than 10,000 or tens of thousands to get these kinds of references this spread out across North America. You can't do that. I mean, you know what I like to say? Compared to the black bear, there's well over 60,000 black bear in Ontario, where my homeland, and if I see, I've never once ever found a dead bear, a dead skeleton of a black bear. There's over 60,000 of them. So then, that whole thing about, are we going to see a skeleton of them? Well, if there's only, a few thousand throughout the entire area of North America, and they're intelligent and they bury their dead, that's why we don't see the skeletons. But I do believe that it's got to be thousands to tens of thousands.
Mike from Chicago is on wild card line number 4. Mike, what's your question for Les?
Hello, yes, this is Bob. Thank you, Connie.
Bob. Hi.
Les, I wanted to get your opinion on some of these television, the Bigfoot shows. It seems like these guys go out there and all they do is fall over each other. They never find anything. It's like a big ooh and ah show. And what's your opinion on these shows? Do you have one?
Yeah, well, yeah, definitely, because it's my industry, and Connie and I were speaking about it in the first hour there. I mean, the problem is that you have to understand that these shows are created by producers, and producers are not Bigfoot researchers or anything like that. And they often, I mean, they have budgets and they have to meet their timeline and they have to deliver content. And to get all that stuff put together, you have to act pretty quickly. This is not a research project that can happen quickly. You have to be ridiculously patient to be able to research this phenomenon. So the shows are bound by their need to produce lots of content in a short space of time to make their deliverable schedule so that they get their paycheck, quite frankly. Hence, you get producers sitting around a table coming up with what the show is going to be about. And you can imagine the discussion. Hey, in this one, let's get so and so down in the valley, and let's say that he hears this sound, but you know, in the end, it'll be an owl, but he'll be scared for a while, and we'll get some nice night shot footage, and we'll get shaky. We'll make him have the camera all shaky. You know, these are the kinds of conversations that go on behind the scenes. Believe it or not, I love breaking down the fourth wall because my world of Survivorman and Survivorman Bigfoot, the fourth wall's always been broken down. I've got nothing to hide. But it becomes about making TV after a while. You can tell I'm not a fan of them.
Thank you.
All right, great. Thank you very much. Yeah, you know, I've wanted to do a lot of documentaries on it and looking for the funding of it. It's very difficult to get that from people because they think you're nuts, and then of course they want. Well, I'll give you the money if you make sure you find something, and you know you can't promise that. But you can certainly promise a lot of information, you know?
Exactly. It's approaching this thing with authenticity and integrity, and it's about making it. You know, I'll tell you something. I've listened to, you know, people say in the making of their TV show, oh well, we had to. It's, you know, and I've never met individuals who make the show Finding Bigfoot. I've heard they're very lovely people and very nice and very authentic, and they're really into it and everything. But at the same token, it's the same situation with Man versus Wild. It's like, oh, you know, well, it was just, you know, I didn't know, or the producers did this. You know, in the end, I say poppycock to all of it, because all of us have the opportunity to say, no, I won't do that because that's not true, or no, I won't do that because that's it's just making a joke out of something that we're supposed to be doing for real. And we're all adults here. We can say no, but they don't. They say yes, and they carry on. I say no. I'm always ready to walk, unless I'm doing the type of artistic work that I think is real.
We're going to go to the east of the Rockies. Michael, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Michael, what's your question for Les?
Hey, Les, how you doing?
Oh, I'm doing good, man.
I'm one of your biggest fans, but we do have a place here in Oklahoma. There's a town called something after Bigfoot, but so we've had sightings here. But what my question was what was one of your scariest moments off camera that you didn't get to record video wise or on voice recorder?
And you're talking about Survivorman Bigfoot, for sure. Let me think. I would suggest. I'm trying to remember because I know I had. I think really it was right in the beginning with that whole episode up on Kremtu Lake. When that tree came down, you have to understand that, you know, a tree falls in a forest. Of course they do. Trees rot. Temperatures change during the day. Cells contract and expand, and so trees fall over. But you have to look at consistency. And every time I find myself in a quote-unquote Bigfoot hotspot, and I'm there, in a manner where maybe an interaction will happen, and there's no wind and there's nothing moving, and then just always a tree comes down. And it sends shivers up my spine every time it happens. It happened, I shot a show this year for Survivorman in Oregon, and I wasn't filming Survivorman Bigfoot. This was a Survivorman show, and it happened again, and it's happened to me dozens of times. The fact, it's starting to get to the point where, to say, well, it's a coincidence that the trees just happen to rot every time I'm in their area on a still day with no wind, I'm not buying it anymore, and it's spooky when it happens. When a big tree comes down 100 feet away from you on a still day without a speck of, an ounce of breath of wind in the air, it can send the shivers up your spine.
Well, thank you for that phone call. And hey, Les, we need to book on here. So I just want to ask you before you take off. Thank you for your time and sharing your experiences and your research. Tell me, the next shows coming up, are they Bigfoot shows that are coming up? And also leave us with what you would like us to know, where to find any of your information, your CDs, and anything else you might want to extend to us.
Well, the way to find me is all the usual suspects. Facebook is Real Les Stroud, and Twitter is Real Les Stroud, and there's an iTunes page and so on. So you can get all of that stuff. My website is simply lesstroud.ca. Easy stuff, easy to find me. And the Survivorman shows that are coming up, these are the classics. In fact, I really put a lot of effort into them. In some of them, I'm following along with some existing stories and sort of saying, hey, here's what I would have done if I were these people. So there's a few twists and turns, but they all come up very soon. And it's all fresh new Survivorman. There'll be some more Survivorman and Son, I hope, in the new year with my son.
Great.
And then lastly, the music's coming out big time. I got new albums and tours. You can catch me, I think, at the Bluebird in Nashville coming up soon in November. And I got some shows in Florida. So if they go to the social media, it's all there. And I love talking with people when they come out to the concerts.
Excellent.
No subjects ever off the table.
Excellent. It's great. Well, is there going to be any more Survivor Bigfoot shows?
Interesting you should ask, and I should have been ready for the fact that you would have asked that. I'm going to be careful in answering this, but if I could make some more Bigfoot shows for the networks, I definitely would. Whether or not the networks will let me do it is another story. At this point, they are being very iffy, unfortunately, because I wanted to go to the dark side next.
Oh, well, you know what? We'll be there. You have an audience. Thank you very much, Les Stroud, for being here. I really appreciate that. And they will have an audience. Thanks a lot. From the 840 WHAS studios of iHeartMedia, I'm Connie Willis here on Coast to Coast AM. Many thanks to Bill May, Bill Gentry, Kelly Carls, Kirk Wesley, Tim Banal, Lex Lonehood, Stephanie Smith, Chris Burrows, Dan Galante, Tommy Danheiser, and Get Better Tommy, Sean Ledesur. We also want to thank Ben Haley helping me out today on the phones, George Knapp, Nathan Staten helping as well, Lisa Lyon, and, of course, George Norrie. Also, thank you again, Les Stroud. Kind of you to give us that time, and it was really fun talking with you. So until we meet again, keep watching the night skies and continue with me to seek out the strange and uncover the unknown. For Coast to Coast AM, I'm Connie Willis.